just I'll bolt out of here by 6 because I got to get Jerry.
Lovesick blind. Why do I climb these heights to you? Twisted muse always gets my shit confused. What's a man have to prove? Do I have to walk the night for you? Every mountain I've climbed, there's a valley low. For every highway I ride, there's a rocky road. She's got me beat, she's got me broken, right down to my soul. Drunk and young, I asked to walk you home, but an aloof response had me on my own without you.
All right, here we are, episode 52, live from the 100-year-old Hockey Cathedral on Morenz Drive, the William Allman Memorial Arena. This episode's special sponsors are Brighter Vision Counselling, Psychology and Wellness, providing compassionate and effective counseling for individuals and families, and Reboot Repair, our IT technicians who set this whole thing up for us in this old room. But we got it. This broadcast is brought to you by the Hockey Club, Stratford Hockey Club, Inc., the board of directors and the team, along with the Armchair Chirpers, for our special official release of the top 50 players for the last 50 years. This being the 50th anniversary since the club was taken over by the Stratford Hockey Club, Inc. in 1975-76, taking on the name of their main sponsors, the Cullitons local plumbing company here in town, was the until 2015-16 season. At the beginning of the 2016-17 season, the hockey club became known as the Huntersteel Warriors, or the Stratford Warriors, sorry, and now known as the Stratford Huntersteel Warriors. This club has deep roots in the community and a winning tradition over 50 years, winning a total of 14 Cherry Cups and 7 Southern Cups championships for the province, with 22 former players moving on to either play or work in the NHL or becoming an NHL official. In November, we got a committee together of 9 people to try and select the top 50 of all time. I'd like to thank the committee members of Steve Rice, former sports reporter for the Stratford Beacon Herald, Wendell Archer, Stratford Hockey Club Board of Directors, General MacArthur, former president of the Board of Directors, current member of the Board of Directors, hockey broadcast commentary, color commentary, Corey Smith, sports reporter for the Stratford Beacon Herald, Dan Matheson, former mayor of Stratford, former president of the Board of Directors, current Board of Directors member, myself, and joining us here tonight, we have Director of Hockey Operations, Jason Clark, along with John Kastner, former chairman of the board, former editor of the Beacon Herald, and current chairman of the board for the Ontario Hockey Federation, which oversees all of hockey in Ontario. I just want to thank you two guys for doing a great job on this, and thanks for being here. And, of course, down at the end of the table, we got the sidekicks. We got Jeff and Razor down there. How you guys doing?
Good.
Very well.
That's quite a mouthful.
Oh,
Exactly.
Take
it
a
was
breath.
it was like doing the game the other night when the whistle wouldn't go.
Before we get started, I'd just like to personally thank the Stratford Warriors Hockey Organization for allowing us to do this very special episode from the Directors Lounge. And I'd never been up here before, so I'm forever grateful for you guys and all the support that you guys have shown us over our time on the podcast. So thank you, Jason Clark. And welcome to the show, Mr. Kastner.
Thanks a lot. Great to be here.
Yeah, John Kastner. Wow, we have royalty in the house. Like, talk about a guy who has seen a lot of hockey, like especially in the early years. I can go back into the 80s, but, John, I'm sure, you can remember a couple of years before that. And so thank you for coming on, to be part of this and a celebration of, let's face it, we could probably do 100 guys. But at some point we had to, you guys had to, the panel of 5 had to draw the line. And full disclosure, there's going to be some people that aren't happy with the list, but this is all about a celebration, not about this guy should have been on the list. And all we ask, folks, is that you enjoy what we're about to present to you, and try and keep the negative comments to a minimum for those that feel the need to go on social media, because these guys have tirelessly worked on their own free will. And I just can't thank John, you, and Clarkie, and Les, and Wendell, and Ricer, and Matho, and all the guys involved with it. So thank you so much, General, all of you guys. Really appreciate it.
Oh, and I forgot Eddie Matthews. Eddie Matthews was on the board. He wanted all the goaltenders.
That's right.
He said he wanted 10 goaltenders, but
So I was with him yesterday morning at hockey, and he was indicating and explaining to a lot of the people around the dressing room how much fun it was to reminisce and bring up the players and, just kind of dig a little bit into the past of this very passionate traditional hockey team for the community. So, absolutely, Eddie. It was great to see you yesterday, and thank you so much for your assistance with this process. So,
Hey, Jeff, I just want to say thank you for thanking us. And, it's our pleasure to have you and host you guys up here again. And since the podcast started, we've really got more exposure every week with us and the other team in town, the Irish, and also some local sports that you guys speak about each week. And it's just phenomenal, the attention that you've given not only our hockey club, but our players. I know they all love the podcast and they tune in and listen. So it's great to have you up here and enjoy the view, which some of us are fortunate enough to do on Friday nights.
Right. How good of a view is that, folks? You got the clock in the background and the arch of 100-year-old, as Les calls it, the cathedral.
on Morenz Drive.
Right? Yeah.
It was interesting really quickly. I saw Quinn Kipfer popped in for a haircut on Saturday, and our conversation carried on. He goes, "Hold it. Are you part of the Armchair Chirpers?" I said, "I am." He goes, "Incredible." He goes, "We listen to it all the time." So it kind of validates your comments to Clarkie, and we really appreciate the support of the young players for the Warriors and them tuning in. And we like spreading the word about this great organization.
yeah, it's the hockey club's been very good to us. Anytime we've asked questions or asked for a favor, it's always been yes. And it just shows you what kind of a leadership group they have. The board of directors, Jamie Nigro, everybody on the board's been very supportive. The hockey operations guys are great, and working with the young kids is fabulous because they love it. They're eating it up. Cole Lewis, I swear he's trying to take over the general's job as the color commentary. The general is in here in the room with us. Every chance Cole gets near a mic, he likes it. So he might be taking after Razor down there after a while.
Well, General's here fact checking, so if any of us says any inaccurate information, he'll be the first one. Him and John are two of the elder statesmen with all the information to make sure it's all factual.
Yeah, a little background, John. You started with the Beacon Herald. What year was that, sir?
August 20th of 79.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I was headed to Teachers College and ended up not going. Got a summer job at the Beacon Herald and was going to work there for 1 year and worked there from August 20th, 1979 until December 12th of 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a run.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. And I spent 22 years in the sports department.
Yeah, because I remember growing up, we'd always wait for the Friday paper to look at the sports and see what John had on tap for the night and who was playing, what happened the week before.
Absolutely.
Right?
Before the internet.
Yeah, you don't get that anymore. You don't get I got to check the Beacon Herald and see what's happening
and
tonight.
it was part of the culture in Stratford, because if that paper wasn't delivered by 4 o'clock, my mom was losing her mind. Like, literally, where's the paper?
Well, that was it. Like, those were the days, like, before the internet where you as you alluded to, you waited for the paper to come. Saturday, like, you wanted to read about, what John wrote on the previous night's game. And if they had a game on Sunday, what was coming up, and then in the notes. And it was
always
just
checking the standings, too, right? Like,
Real
Always
quick
checking
change
standings.
and technology change. We talk about the internet. Steve Rice and I made up a list of about the phone numbers of about 40 arenas, and most of them were for the booth. And you'd have the concession stand. There'd be a phone there, and so we'd get back from here and we'd start phoning all these arenas to get scores.
You're right.
And we'd phone Wellesley and Tavistock and all the New Hamburg and Milverton and in order to do your scores, you literally
Right.
whip through this big long list of phone calls, and then after that, when the interest here in Stratford started to change, we'd phone the press box at Bowling Green, phone the press box at Michigan State, phone the press box at Western Michigan,
Right.
And get scores.
Get
and
those scores.
That's
yeah.
how we built the standings. But now I sound really old.
Wow.
You're just seasoned, John.
Right.
Seasoned.
Exactly.
I heard somebody refer to you as the Stratford Encyclopedia. So
Oh, geez. Well, encyclopedias are a thing of the past. Too.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that a compliment? Or?
I'm just saying that's what I was told. You got the Stratford Encyclopedia coming on the show.
Yeah,
We
they're-
need names.
Yeah.
Who called them that?
Yeah, the encyclopedias are free at Value Village now. So
Oh,
But,
crazy.
we'd just like to, as well, our much appreciation. We already have 27 viewers, so it's a big show for us so far. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into the live show, the live program at an early start at 3:30. We are just completely ready to go, Les.
Yep. Razor, you're going to start us off. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the top 50 of all time. They are not in an order from 1 to 50, as that would have been a daunting task that us as the committee decided was not something we wanted part of. So we went by decades. We had 5 guys pick a decade, take a decade. They came back with 15 or so players. We got down to 81. We got together in a meeting that a lot of us thought would be longer. It was only about 2.5 hours, and we got it down to 50. There was only one trade after the fact. There was a couple names brought up we talked about. We just didn't know who you take out to add that person. And we'll talk about some of those on future shows and maybe at the end of this one. But Razor's is going to start us off with the 5 goaltenders.
All right. Well, a lot of people have been blowing up our phones for the past couple of weeks saying can't wait to hear who's on the list. And so, like Les said, I'm pleased to announce the top 5 goaltenders that made the final cut. Now, 4 out of the 5 ended up winning the Sutherland Cup. Only one of them didn't win the Sutherland Cup, and I'll explain why. He did everything that he could do. It was just injuries, and the team ran out of horses. I think they were running on one regular defenseman by the time they hit the Sutherland Cup finals. So without further ado, and like Les said, these are in no particular order, folks. These are just 50 names that deserve to be on this list. So number 50, Ryan McDonald. 39 games played, 31 wins, 6 losses. He had 2 shutouts, and he ended up backstopping the Cullitons to the 2002-2003 Sutherland Cup finals with a 4-3 final series win over the Thorold Blackhawks. After he was done playing in Stratford, he ended up going on to the London Knights, Guelph Storm, played in Europe, played in the Central Hockey League, and he's currently a surveyor with Apex Geometrics. Number 49, Matt Barnes. Who could forget Matt Barnes?
Did we ever get an official height on Matt Barnes?
I actually know that.
Do you?
I do.
5'5"?
Taller than you?
He's exact same height as
Like-
me.
like-
We were both 5'4".
5'4".
Yep.
Okay. Because, my
Lights
God,
out.
I remember watching him working here. The guy had the best reflexes out of any goalie that I've ever seen in my life. He reminded me of like a Darren Pang, but like lightning quick reflexes. Matt Barnes played here 2 seasons, 71 games played, 57 wins, 10 losses, had 7 shutouts in his 2 years.
Franchise record.
Franchise record, holds the single season record of 6 shutouts, broke Terry Wickham's record of 5, and he ended up playing 93 to 95, and they won a Sutherland Cup in 94-95, beating the St. Thomas Stars and Joe Thornton 4 games to none. The pride of Brantford, Ontario. And after he was done playing in Stratford, he went on to Western Michigan University, played in the East Coast League, the Central Hockey League, Europe, and became an assistant coach at Western Michigan. And he's currently a goalie coach with Rick Heinz's goalie school. So that's what I could find on Matty Barnes.
A little fun fact there. We have a goalie this year who has 4 shutouts for Stratford. Chase Furlong,
Wow.
17 years old. So
He's been a great addition to the group this year.
I guess. Yeah, him and McDougall are just lights out, and that's what you need, especially with the playoffs coming up.
Quick note on Matt Barnes is he came to Stratford. He had played the previous year in the Junior B League. He'd played for either Oswego or Brantford because that franchise
Right.
sort of went back and forth. And I was down there for a game, and I think Stratford won 4-1, and I think Matt Barnes had 68 shots.
Wow.
And it was a 4-1 final with an empty netter. And I think at that point somebody said he could probably play net for us next year.
Right.
And then he ended up coming to Stratford the next year from Oswego.
Yeah.
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 He was out of Brantford, was his hometown.
Yeah.
Next up, number 48, Jeff Hill, the pride of Tavistock, Ontario. He played 4 seasons, had 115 games played, 67 wins, 13 losses. He had 3 shutouts, played from 87 to 91. And, 4 shutouts. Won the Sutherland Cup in 89-90 against the St. Catharines Falcons. They ended up winning 4 games to none. Went on to Fanshawe College, and he's currently the owner of H2O Paddle Sports, Inc. in Tavistock, Ontario. I think they make, like, paddles and stuff for canoes and aquatics.
Niche. Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
Fun fact on Jeff Hill. I'll throw one of these in for most people.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Fun fact on Jeff Hill. He came to camp that year. He was either the second or third goalie. The first goalie was one of the rare players who came to Stratford who was already an NHL draft pick. Gar Snow was a Quebec Nordiques draft pick, and he came here. Jeff Hill was going to be the backup. Gar Snow couldn't play. Couldn't stop anything at this level. And Jeff Hill ended up becoming the goaltender.
The number one.
And he became number 1 goaltender, and then stayed after Gar Snow went to the University of Maine. And
Right.
And Jeff Hill was the goalie for the next couple of years.
And Snow made it to the NHL, too, with the Islanders.
10-year NHL career.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then won a national championship at the University of Maine.
Right.
And couldn't play here.
Couldn't play.
Yeah.
Crazy. They must have looked at his size and went, I think we can teach him a few things. So we can't teach him to be big, but we can teach him a few things. So moving along, the only guy to not win the Sutherland Cup out of the 5 goalies on this list, Jim Samick. My God, what a great goalie he was. He played just 1 season, played 42 games, was 17 wins, 17 losses, didn't have any shutouts. Played with the Old Chuck Dream Team in 82-83. Ended up, they lost in the OHA semis to Henry Carr.
Finals.
The finals,
Yep.
sorry. They beat the London Diamonds in the semis. They get to, which was a hard-fought battle. They had Craig Simpson on the London Diamonds, and Craig Billington was the other goalie. They get by them in a 7-game series. Then they meet Henry Carr, where they're broken down. They're down to 1 regular defenseman, and they lose Game 1, 4-3, Game 2 in double overtime, Game 3 double overtime, and Game 4 in overtime. So even though they got swept, that wasn't a sweeping series. And we could go on and on about Samick and that team and LeVar and Olchuk and everyone. And that's why we said before we came on the air, John, we got to have you back on a podcast because we only have so much time to talk about.
Because there was a goal scored that year that people were leaving the rink. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and the last goalie on the list is number 46, Terry Wickham. The pride, where is it? Was it Sault Ste. Marie?
yes, Terry Wickham was born in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Sault Ste. Marie. And he played 2 seasons, 56 games. He had 7 shutouts. And he ended up Or 6 shutouts. Six shutouts, yeah.
7 over his career.
Okay. And ended up going on to, last you had written down, playing college hockey.
He played
out
college in New Brunswick.
New Brunswick.
Yeah, we had him on the broadcast a few weeks ago. Him and the general were just talking away like it was back in 1970.
He won the Sutherland Cup in 77, 78 over Streetsville Derbies. And back then, they did a point system, so they won 9 points to 5. So a game could end tied at the time, and they ended up tying. I think it was game 1, and they ended up beating Streetsville 9 points to 5.
I'm glad they changed that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Play your hearts out, beat the living tar out of each other, and see you next game. 6-6.
Yeah.
So Terry's the current goalie coach of the St. Thomas Stars and works at Costco Wholesale. And that's the 5 goalies on the top 50 of all time.
All right.
Well done, Razor.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Good start. Good start.
Okay, we're going to move on to forwards and defense. We're going to go to Jason Clark for 10 of these fellas.
Yeah, I got the next 10 people on the list here. And first guy up for me was the captain of our hockey club when I took over as director of hockey operations, Zach McCann. Zach, Stratford boy, 2-time captain with the hockey club. Very, very consistent scorer. He had over a point a game in both the regular season and playoffs. Zach was a Midwestern Conference MVP in 2021-22, and he was a scoring champion in 22-23, and he was a regular season GOJHL scoring champion that year as well in 22-23, and he led our hockey club to our latest Cherry Cup championship that year too. Zach has gone on to play hockey at the Canadian University level, and there's not too much more I can say about Zach other than a phenomenal kid. It's another great kid that no doubt had such a special time playing in his hometown. He played here for 4 years and was able to captain the team the last couple of years and was kind of the real driver of our offense on that hockey club, surrounded by a bunch of great players, obviously, that we had in here to get us over that line. And unfortunately, we came 1 game short that year in the Sutherland Cup to the almighty Leamington Flyers.
The only one thing I got to add to that, Clarkie, that I question with Zach's career is his decision to go and play for the Alvinston Killer Bees currently in the Super League. So
Yeah, we'll see him on the street at some point.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no doubt.
He's also one of those kids that got caught up in the COVID-19.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
the
know.
O2 age group, right?
Yeah.
They lost their last year of minor hockey, or a year of junior, wherever they were in that time frame. But he made amends for it for sure, and had a great career here, and was a player that will be remembered here for his era of playing for sure. Number 44 on the list, Sean Ross. So Sean played here from 2017 to 2019. Again, over a point a game player here for the hockey club. He was named a first team All-Star in 2018. He went on also to play university hockey in the province of Ontario, and then also some pro over in Europe. And another guy that was lightning quick on his feet on the ice. If you remember Sean playing here, I wasn't coaching or doing hockey ops roles here at the time. I was doing a bit of scouting for the hockey club, but a real dynamic guy to watch play, and another driver of offense here for the hockey club when he was here. Number 43, Jack Scanlon. So Jack as well was a 2-time captain for the hockey club. Very, very consistent offensive player for us. He was 1.35 points per game during the regular season and 1.31 points per game
Doesn't
in the
dip off.
playoffs.
Doesn't dip off.
No
when
dip at all. He was a very, very consistent player. And in 2017, 2018, he was named the OHA Junior B Player of the Year, which is a great accolade for any young hockey player playing in our league. He was the Midwestern Conference MVP that year as well. And he was also on that Cherry Cup team from 2016. We'll talk about another player from that team next. And Jack went on to play university hockey in Ontario here as well. I got to flip through my abundance of notes and highlights here as I get through these players. Next up at 42 is Tyson Baker. And Tyson was the captain of the hockey club when I came here with Dave Williams and Mike McLeod to coach the team. And I'm kind of at a loss for words to what to say about Tyson for how incredible of a captain he was. He was just a leader on and off the ice, and he was a guy that was a little rough around the edges. He spent a lot of time in the penalty box, but he was almost a point per game player as well. But he held everybody accountable, and he just did things the right way, and he was an easy guy to follow for the hockey club here. And one of my favorite memories of Tyson was on the Cherry Cup run that year in Elmira. We went to overtime, and he started, and the puck was dropped. He chipped the puck in, drove the net hard. There was a bit of a collision at the net, scored the OT winner. OT lasted about 8 seconds.
Right.
The place went nuts because there was a ton of Stratford people that were there as well. The rink was full in Elmira. Fantastic goal for Tyson and for our hockey club. And, we ended up getting to the Cherry Cup and winning the Cherry Cup that year, too, at home here, which, again, is a place that is just magic when you win a championship here. And Tyson's gone on to a great career in the National Hockey League as an official now. He's still working there. It's great to see him on TV each and every night. And nothing but great things to say about Tyson. There's no doubt fans that came and watched him play while he was here loved watching him play as well.
Great kid. I would get him. He would want to get on the ice, and I'd let him in the junior B room. And just like you said, Clarky, just a great overall human being. And so glad to see his name on the list.
Yeah. A great player and a great leader.
354 penalty minutes.
Yeah.
He kept them honest.
And almost a point-a-game player, like you mentioned.
His name's probably still
incredible.
carved in the penalty box there if you look closely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he played 136 games. He had 110 points and 354 penalty minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was a busy guy every night. And Cherry Cup champion, right?
Right.
That led us there. Some great photos of him skating around the ice here with a cup over his head.
Sweet.
Number 42 on the list, we have Trevor Sauter. And when I talk about lightning quick, Trevor Sauter is that guy. Like just a flash on the ice, up and down the ice. One of the most complete players. I wrote down here in my notes here that we had. He's just under a point per game player for his entire career here. And he played here from 2011 to 2015. And he was also, besides being just under a point per game, he's also the GOJHL best defensive player 4 times in a row.
Amazing.
Right? Like it's you can't do both.
Right.
You don't do both. Nobody does both.
Right.
As a coach, you want players to play both and do both things, right? But Trevor was that player who he just did everything at each end of the rink, the most honest player, and the coaches, no doubt, really, really trusted Trevor and never, ever had to worry about him. It's easy to call his number when you're on the bench.
And you knew if Stratford was going on the penalty kill, he was going to be out there, and he'd spend 2 minutes down the other end with the puck against the boards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it drive teams nuts for sure. And so great player. And I know Trevor's coached a lot of minor hockey too in and around the area and really gives back to the community since he was playing here, and a fan favorite forever. People that watch him play here again will think fondly of him in his days here.
I read too that he was a scout for the Saginaw Spirit in 22-23. So I don't know if he still is, but
I'm not sure
he
if
had
he
a cup
still
of
is or not.
coffee.
I think he's still playing for the Tavistock Royals.
He is. We were just
Yeah.
in Sunday morning hockey. We were talking about. I just overheard these people talking about the Tavistock Royals, and this player number 18, and Trevor Sauter. Yeah, just flew all over that ice.
Yeah.
He's still playing great hockey at a really nice level. So
Just plays at a breakneck speed.
He does.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic to watch.
yeah, congrats, Trevor.
Yeah.
And not a
like
big
a
guy.
Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah.
Right?
And not a real big guy.
Yeah. No.
No.
Moving on, number 40 on the list here is Andrew Barton. Andrew's another local Stratford boy. Played 126 games for the hockey club, had 135 points, so over a point per game for Andrew. Went on to play D3 at Oswego, and just another fantastic young man that's involved in the game still. Working in hockey, he's always around the rink. I've seen him and talked to him different times about potentially joining our club as well. He'd be a great asset if we can ever convince him to work with the hockey club and get back here at the rink. But another guy that, you might hear about his dad later. I don't know.
Right?
We'll see. I don't have that decade.
Possibly.
We'll
But,
see, Clarky. We'll
yeah,
see.
Yeah, we'll see. Little
Rumor
teaser,
has it.
little teaser out there. But just another great local hockey family, right? And he did great things when he was here playing for the hockey club. So congrats,
Yes.
Andrew, on making the list here.
Congrats.
Next up at 39, I have Brad McClure. So Brad played 144 games here and had 142 points. He went on to play D1 hockey at Minnesota State. He's also played in the American Hockey League and currently still playing pro hockey over in Europe. Brad spent time here from 2009 to 2012. And again, we're blessed here in the city with another local boy doing well, not only for the hockey club here, but also all over North America and now in Europe. So congratulations to Brad.
Yeah. Rumor has it he's going to be on the Chirpers podcast when he comes home.
Yeah, so he's a client of mine, and we've formed a really neat relationship. And I'll send him notes and that through Instagram if he's showing like a shot from a hockey game or something like that he's in, and always encouraging. And found out about this, so he said when he's back in Canada and Stratford that he'll be joining us. So we're holding you to that.
Absolutely.
That's great. I don't know Brad well. I know him enough to say hi and how's it going when I see him on the street. But he's always got a smile on his face.
Absolutely.
Right? Seems like a very, very happy young man. So
He's
again,
a really nice young guy.
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Number 38 on the list, Nick Vergeer. So Nick played here from 2002 to 2004. Over a point per game guy. Again, another one of these guys that in the regular season and in the playoffs. 87 games played in the regular season, had 117 points. And he played 29 playoff games for the hockey club and had 35 points. Nick also is a two-time Cherry Cup and two-time Sutherland Cup champion, back-to-back years with that hockey club, which was a fantastic club around here in 2003 and 2004. And Nick went on to play some Ontario University hockey here in the province of Ontario as well. Next on the list at 37, Kyle Casey.
Has anyone heard of him?
Kyle
Yeah.
Casey.
Nope.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
I've never seen him.
Never met him.
Never
Yeah.
met him. No.
Yeah.
Kyle Casey, Stratford born.
Great guy.
Great guy. Current board member. Still giving back to the hockey club. He's here. You'll see him on a Friday night slinging,
At the bar.
slinging beers at the bar, helping out when he's here. Kyle was played 181 hockey games for the club in the regular season. Had 148 points, 234 penalty minutes too. So he was a little feisty.
Yeah, like to muck it up.
Yeah, and 57 points in 47 playoff games as well. Kyle played here from 2001 until 2005, and he again was part of that hockey club in 2003 and 2004 that won back-to-back Cherry Cups and
Right.
Sutherland Cups. And fun story, Kyle told us one night, I think it was maybe here at the rink or whatever, or it might have even been on your podcast, that they jumped in the Avon River each year.
Oh, yeah,
After winning the Sutherland Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said they went at the one year, and the next year is like, well, we did it last year. Let's do it
Right.
again, right? So, little fun story about Kyle and the hockey club back then. And the last guy that I have on my list to speak about is Curtis Calling. Congratulations, Curtis. Curtis played here from 2001 to 2004. Played 155 regular season games and had 146 points. 199 points, 146 penalty minutes, and 48 playoff games and 46 points in those 48 playoff games. Curtis went on to play D1 hockey for RPI. And again, another guy, along with Nick and Kyle Casey, played on those back-to-back Sutherland Cup and Cherry Cup championship teams in 2003 and 2004. And I had the luxury of coaching Curtis before he got going here. Myself and Jason Lott coached him with the Huron Perth Lakers when he was in Bantam, and there was a Bantam draft there. I was doing a little bit of scouting with the Sudbury Wolves at the time, and we got Kurt selected to Sudbury. Bert
Nice.
Templeton was a coach back then up in Sudbury. So great young man, great family. It was great to be around and having him as a coach, and it was great to see the success that he did have here and carried on throughout his career. And I think, Razor, you had mentioned he's maybe out east coaching hockey still. And
Yeah, out in
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was texting with him last night and let him know to listen to the podcast and gave him congratulations and invited him up for the celebration afterwards. And he's like, I'm out in Connecticut. I won't be there, but definitely going to listen to it. So congrats, Kurt.
We couldn't send the corporate helicopter to go get him.
No,
We're
that's on next year's budget.
Yeah, it's down. It's down. But really, you know, for the little group of guys there that I had the pleasure of announcing and talking about, I just want to congratulate everybody for making the list, and thank you for making the memories here with this hockey club. And you know, as I'm part of the club right now, we're trying to carry on all the traditions that you guys and everybody else that we're going to hear about tonight have set here. And it's a pleasure to work for this hockey club and do the things that we do and continue to turn out good hockey teams year after year and chase more championships. So congratulations, guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Well done,
Absolutely.
Karki. Well done.
Yep. Great job.
Oh,
Jason's Kyle Casey. He's not only coaching hockey and helping out in the community, now he's taken up as a referee. So he's now on the other side of the flight state.
Oh, okay. For those of you that didn't hear that, the general just let us know that Kyle Casey's actually getting into refereeing now. He must be getting some tips from Kendrick Nicholson on that aspects. But yeah, well, that's great. Yeah, I hope to see him
The
later
old
on tonight.
Double-edged sword.
Right?
Going to become a ref.
What do you
Good
need,
for you.
ref?
Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent, guys.
Oh.
Great,
Okay.
great job so far.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
you see the trend of the players so far, and it's just, you know, in a lot of cases, may it be people on this list or just played with this organization, everybody seems to go on to really great things in life, whatever road that leads them down. It doesn't necessarily always mean university or a hockey career, but you know, in the trades or whatever route they want to go down. It's a trend, and I think that it's a huge. There needs to be a commend to the hockey club and organization to create the structure for these players as they are in the pinnacle years of their life and where they're going to head off after this. So another kudos send out to the hockey club and organization over the years.
All right, so I'll carry on with the next 10 players. We got at number 35. It's a pleasure to tell Tyler Canal he has made the top 50. Tyler Canal, 142 games, and he must have been a saint on the ice because he only had 14 penalty minutes in his time here. So if there was a Lady Bang Award for Junior B, he would have been in the running. Part of the 2003 Cherry Cup Championship team and the Southern Cup Championship team. Went on to play at Lake Forest D3. Former video coach and assistant coach and interim head coach with the Cullitons. Currently, he is an assistant coach in girls fastball during the summer, and I get to see Tyler quite a bit there on the field. And we'll go to number 34, Kendrick Nicholson. Kendrick Nicholson from Milverton, Ontario. Also part of that 2003 Cherry Cup and 2003 Southern Cup. 185 games, 160 points, 231 penalty minutes. He's currently an NHL referee, so still in the game, keeping it. You get to see him every now and then. Now at number 33, we have Greg Van Bakel. Greg Van Bakel, I can remember coming here and watching him play, and he never took a shift off. Greg was always gas to the floor and go. 133 games, 213 points, so he's a 1.60 points per game. Went on to play at Canisius College, and he is currently a professor at Fanshawe. I've dealt
Great
with
guy.
him. Yep.
Went to high school with him,
Yep.
and he carried that on through anything that he did, and it proves his worth too. There with you mentioning what he does for a living now, and he married Sue Dunn from St.
Yep.
Mike's, and great family, and you know, it's remained pretty local. So kudos, Mr. Van Bakel.
Yeah.
And at number 32, defenseman Dave Kuzma. Now, when we talked about him at the committee level, everybody said right away he had to be on the list because Dave did everything he could for this team.
Yeah.
He was probably one of the best well-rounded defensemen Stratford had in a long time when he came up. And he was Cherry Cup in 1996. He had 155 games, 217 points. Another guy with 322 penalty minutes. So he knew his way to the penalty box, but he wasn't a guy that shied away for anything, as I can remember. Went on to play D1 and in the ECHL. At number 31.
If you just stop about Dave Kuzno for a second. Two things to think about him that are noteworthy. won a defenseman who won the scoring title.
Right.
So that's pretty, as I think during my
Doesn't
tenure.
happen very
I
often.
Can't think of too many guys who did that. And the other thing that's pretty unique about him is a guy who played for Stratford, who was a former Waterloo Siskin. There
Right.
wasn't a lot of that either. There's a guy named Cam Mott. He played for Waterloo and then played here, and then Colin Schmidt.
Yep.
And Dave Kuzno. And other than that, I'm not sure there's a whole bunch of guys that went from Waterloo to Stratford.
No, you're right. And
You're
he's
right.
from Waterloo, is
Yeah.
he not? Yeah.
And he really got caught up here because when AAA hockey really started, there were some Stratford guys played together in
Right.
Waterloo. You had a choice. And like Colin Schmidt,
Dennis
Dennis
Williams.
Williams, those guys. And
Yep.
that's how we ended up with the Stratford connection. Sorry to interject.
No,
there,
no, that's fine. That's perfect. We're going to go to number 31. And number 31 is a special player for this organization. Still leads, has the most points at 145 in Stratford Cullitons Warriors history. Eric Anderson from Plymouth, Michigan. 131 games, 99 goals, 170 assists for 269 points. So a 2.05 points per game player. Yeah, he's phenomenal. He was recently
Unreal.
on the show last week and went to play at St. Lawrence University. Was just back there for their 25th anniversary. He's in the St. Lawrence University Hall of Fame. He was a former Hobie Baker finalist.
Yes.
We have a few of them on the list actually. Make the Hobie Baker finalists. So congratulations. He was also part of the Cherry Cup champion 95 and 96 and the Sutherland Cup champion 1995.
Les, I don't know
Yep.
if you mentioned his 269 points are third all time. Yeah. So unbelievable.
Yeah.
And for those who missed it, we did have Colin Schmidt, Eric Anderson, and Greg DeVries on last episode.
Yep.
From what we understand, they had a great time, and we got to celebrate with some stories and stuff like that. But, yeah, congratulations, Eric.
Yep. And at number 30, Mr. Boyd Devereaux from Seaforth, Ontario. Played 91 games, 144 points, 1.58 goals per game. Went on to play in the OHL, the AHL, NHL with the Oilers, Red Wings, Coyotes, Maple Leafs, Stanley Cup champion in the 2001-2002 season with the Detroit Red Wings. Boyd was one of those guys you saw on the ice, and he could move up and down that wing pretty quick.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of people stopping him out there.
He had the tools at this level that you could tell that he was a point of difference between the rest of the players in the league, and he was just bound. Now, when he was here, he was actually small.
Yeah.
He was under 5'10". He was about 5'9" and about 150 pounds, at least in the program.
Yeah.
But it helped him when he hit his growth spurt because he ended up being about, 6'1", if
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, and a nice 200 pounds, so a nice size for a forward as he moved up through his hockey career, including the NHL.
Yeah, because him and his brother came here together, I remember.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Boyd wanted to get to the NHL as quick as possible, and the Rangers drafted him and probably got a schooling package out of the Rangers and ended up going that route, and the rest is history when he ended up making it to the show.
Yep. And at number 29, also part of that line with Eric Anderson, Dennis Williams, local Stratford boy, 138 games, 101 goals, 140 assists for 241 points, and he also had 430 penalty minutes. Now, on the show last week, they told us most of those are probably 10-minute misconducts for chirping.
Right.
So he'd fit in good on this podcast because Dennis was not a big guy
No.
on the ice, but
Competitive.
yeah.
Competitive.
Super competitive.
And everybody I've talked to always said they can remember somebody would come and hit them, and Dennis would drop, and
Yeah.
they'd go over top of him. So he went on to play at D1 at Bowling Green University. He coached at D3 Newman College, and currently the D1 Bowling Green head coach and then he was also a WHL coach with the Everton Silvertips, and he won junior gold medal for Canada as an assistant coach in 2022 and a head coach in 2023. So we want to congratulate Dennis on both of those.
He
Pretty
was
impressive resume.
Yes.
He was fourth all-time scorer for the Junior Bees with 241 points.
Yeah, he said it on his thing when he sent his thing, and his teammates got him the scholarship. So, and the last member of the SAW line is Colin. But Colin told me the other day, or the last time when I had him on the broadcast, it's now called the Was line. Colin Schmidt at number 28, 93 games, 83 goals, 145, assists, 229 points. He was a 2.46 goals per game, and he only spent 2 years here. As John was saying, he spent 2 years before that in Waterloo. I had him up on top of on the broadcast, and he said it was interesting being on both sides of the ice in this arena. Not a lot of players do that, as we've seen. So
I can tell you from coaching in this league on both sides of the rink, it is a great place as a visitor to come in and play and be successful. You love to beat Stratford on a Friday
I
night
used
here.
to see you and Willie when you're in Listowel. Across the
And,
ice.
you know, it's a great place, but I'm telling you, that horn and the fans here, they can chase you out of here in a real hurry too. So it is quite the love-hate relationship. And John, you talk about guys from Waterloo playing here. We had a player a couple years ago that won the Cherry Cup here with us, Owen Robertson. He played in Waterloo and then came to Stratford here too. And he talked a lot about that in our room about, hey, we can use this place to our advantage here, guys. Teams they want to get out of here, start the bus because they want nothing left but here. But we do get teams' best games because they want to win here and put it to Stratford for sure.
Absolutely.
all right, number 27, probably one of the most highly decorated Stratford Cullitons players of all time, Mr. Chris Pronger, NHL Hall of Famer. He was only here for 48 games one season. He had 52 points, 132 penalty minutes, a point per game player as a defenseman. His defense partner was Greg DeVries that year, who we had on the, like Jeff was saying, we had on the podcast. I don't know if I can go through Chris's whole list of his achievements because we might be here a while because he's pretty much won it all. Pretty much won it all. Played for the Peterborough Petes, a World Junior Championship in 1993, second overall draft pick to the Hartford Whalers, World Championship in 1997, gold medal in 2002, 2010, St. Louis Blues captain, Anaheim Ducks captain, Philadelphia Flyers captain, Stanley Cup champion with Anaheim in 2007, Norris and Hart Trophy winner, and elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2015. Mr. Chris Pronger.
Not too shabby.
Currently runs a luxury travel agency with his wife Lauren, traveling all over the world. The people that want to do luxury things out of the ordinary.
Yep.
Couple of great points about Chris Pronger. We talk about drafting. Clarky, you talk about how you come across players. One of the great stories about Pronger was Joan and Denny Flanny had gone up to a hockey tournament in Thunder Bay, and they were up at a midget tournament, and they were up there, and Joan had a great habit of running into people, and people saying, well, you know, this player's good, or that player, you should look at this guy, that guy. And anyways, they said to Joan and Denny that the best player in Thunder Bay, the best player up here, he's not at this tournament because the coach here only takes second-year midgets. He doesn't take any first-year midget players. Said there's a really good kid playing at a high school tournament across town at a little rink, and he's probably the best player up here. So Joan and Denny packed up, went over to this high school tournament, and came back with Chris Pronger.
Wow.
Didn't hear that.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other great Stratford connection with Chris Pronger, there was a great picture that went viral. There was a celebrity hockey game in the NHL All-Star game, and they had some NHL guys playing celebrity guys, and he wallpapered Justin Bieber right into the glass. And there's a picture taken from the other side of the glass. Pronger's got a big smile on his face as he's pinning Bieber against the glass.
Right.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Clarky, if I'm not wrong, we have a connection with Chris Pronger this year on our team. Chase Furlong.
Yes, family friends of the Furlongs. And, you know, when we were looking at bringing Chase in, we got word that they were family friends and reached out and had a conversation with Chris. And he had mentioned that he had talked to the family and said, if you have an opportunity to go play in Stratford, you should go. So, you know, we were fortunate, and Chase has been a great fit, and he's playing real well, and we're so lucky to have him here. And that's kind of how the family here in Stratford is, right, where there's so many people spread out through the hockey world that have come through here at some point. And to get that good message from Chris about the Furlongs and the Furlongs to reach out and have that connection, I mean, we're just so lucky.
And I think that network too, because you're probably not getting the same crop of players that have been through here over the years. Clarky, would it be fair to say? So you've got to cultivate and network with people who can pull out these players that you're finding and serving your team well and you know, being fine young players and gentlemen along with that. Would that be a fair fair statement? Cool.
Jerry Broadhagen just chimed in and he said Jason Lott called Tyson Baker the best captain he's ever had in hockey.
Yeah.
Yep. he wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah. And my final one at number 26 from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, Jason Mervin. Jason Mervin had 95 games, 123 goals, 87 assists, 210 points, 2.21 goals against average. Most goals in franchise history in the 1991-92 season was 79. Most power play goals in a season franchise record 1991-92 with 25.
So just really quick and not a big deal, but it's 2.21 points per game, not goals against. That's okay. just for the people who maybe aren't familiar.
And all right, that does it for me. I leave it with a sniper, and I think we
Boy,
throw it to
could
you
he-
now, Jeff.
He could score. He was.
I believe he was brought down by TU, was he not?
I'm not sure.
He
I'm
was.
not
He
sure.
was.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was
Another Northern Ontario boy.
Kirkland
Yeah.
Lake. Yeah.
Yep, Swervin Mervin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was,
Third.
he was not a blinding speed guy.
No.
He was a good positional guy and could finish and good from 10 feet and in.
He was. I was looking at the guys that had the most goals in the career. He was third all time at goals per game at 1.29 goals per game. Like lights out once,
Yeah.
from 15 feet in, the guy was as dangerous as they came.
So one thing interesting, a little stat for Jason Mervin, his best season, and then in the playoffs, he in the Midwestern playoffs, without getting outside the league, he had 100 goals.
Correct.
Wow.
He had 100 goals in the regular season at Midwestern playoffs. 100 in one
Jeez.
season.
Yeah, I remember
That's
that
incredible.
Yeah. 42 game regular season plus playoffs. He had 100 goals.
Incredible.
too. I don't know if that's been touched.
I can't imagine.
No.
Wow.
Jeez.
Like
No.
that's those are
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
The only guy that would ever come to mind that would be in that stratosphere would be Sean Heafy.
Yeah,
But
Sean
it-
Heafy had 50 in a regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah, twice.
Right.
Yeah, and then
But not 79
Not
and
so-
100.
no.
Yeah, but
Because-
no, I know what
But
you're
you
saying.
know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
When you're talking like, all-time greatest scorers, and we'll talk about there's other guys coming up, but Jason Mervin was as good as they came.
100%. Absolutely.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, Jeff.
All right, Les, thanks for that. And congratulations to all the players from Les's chapter. Some great names in here so far, eh?
yeah.
I'm really loving this so far. So I have number 25, and it would be hometown boy Mike Chambers, played here from 89 to 94. You would consider that one of the Golden Boys.
Yep.
He had a great career here with 148 games played, with 205 points, including 68 goals and 137 assists. Was a Cherry Cup champion in the 1990 team, where they also went on to win the Sutherland Cup. Great team that year. Went on to play hockey at Waterloo University of Waterloo. Now as a local practice of chiropractic in Stratford here with his wife, and they have a great team there down on Wellington Street. So congratulations, Mike, for cracking the list. Next, we have from Dublin, Ontario, Rem Murray. For some of you familiar with him, he was here for 148 games. Well, this is almost like a carbon copy of Chambers. I thought I was reading the wrong one. So it is the carbon copy, 148, 68, 205. Maybe that's a misprint, not too sure. But again, Cherry Cup champion in 1990, Sutherland Cup champion in 1990. He went on to play at Michigan State, NCAA D1. Went to have campaigns in the AHL. He was drafted by the Oilers, played for the New York Rangers, Nashville Predators, and was a representative at the World Championships, and also played for a little bit in Europe.
Yeah, that'd be my misprint. He'd be 94 games, 58 goals, 91 assists for 149 points.
All right. A quick edit there, no problem.
captain at Michigan State too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last year at State, ended up as a captain for Ron Murray for Ron Mason. Rem's dad was Ron Murray, and Ron Mason was from Seaforth, and came and looked at Rem, and there's a bit of an automatic connection there, and Rem was a bit of a long shot to go there.
Really?
Yeah, he was. Pat was too, and there was a bit of. That's when Michigan State was really going pretty good. Lots of NHL picks, and Michigan State was pretty happy with those two guys.
I don't know if you ever heard the story TU told me one time. He said Michigan State was looking for a goalie, So they came down here. He wanted to look at Heafy. And we had a Sunday afternoon game. I had played the Friday night, and Ron Mason's in the stands. So we had been out, drinking Friday and Saturday because I didn't think I had to play Sunday. Well, Matt took ill and had the flu on Sunday, so I come in hungover. And Dennis Flanagan says to me, Razor, you're starting. So I played, and guy took a shot from center, and the puck was knuckling. And it hit me in the screen and dented my screen. We had to call time because Matt couldn't go into the game. So Tommy Nigro's hammering out my screen so that we can continue. TU tells the story that Ron Mason looks at my name going, Gary Ray, and stroked me off the list right after that.
Oh, dear.
Yes, but he came down to look at Heath and then saw Pat and ended up falling for him, I guess. So.
Yeah.
There was quite a connection there when Rem arrived in Edmonton. I played with Mike Watt from Edmonville, and who else? Was it Devereaux that was there at the same time?
Yep.
And DeBrusque. And
he's from Kincardine.
Right, but he played with the Cullitons. DeBrusque.
Right, yes.
So there was like a whole Stratford connection there in Edmonton for a couple seasons. That was pretty cool. So congratulations, Rem Murray, on a really great portfolio of a career. And we're fortunate to have you come through this organization. Number 23, local favorite of all time would be Mr. Chris Brooks. Played
Great
from
guy.
1990 to 92. Stratford, Ontario native. Played here just 97 games. And ladies and gentlemen, he put up 221 points.
Crazy.
Including 162 assists, 2.2 points per game. Won the Midwestern Junior B scoring title in 91-92 with 124 points. After his successes here, he did carry on some great career after that at the NCAA level, D1 at Western Michigan, where he played also in the ECHL, in the AHL, and he's currently associate head coach at Clarkson University, which is a really strong program down in the U.S. I have a buddy who's still good friends with Brooksy who goes down and sees him quite a bit, and they've got a really great program down at Clarkson.
Nice.
But Chris Brooks was, again, a big fan favorite of being local.
For sure. Silky mitts, like one of the best setup guys on the list, like just so smooth out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So congrats there, Brooksy. Number 22. This is a special one, and this is I think a big advocate of why we don't really put any specific names in order. We do it more by decade, because number 22 is Jamie Hartnett from North Bay. This player has most assists in franchise history with 212. Also has most points in franchise history with 371.
Crazy.
Just incredible stats. Played 186 games here with 159 goals, 212 assists. He was a part of the 1990 Cherry Cup championship team, a huge factor with that team, along with the Sutherland Cup champion 1990 as well. Went on to play university in hockey in Waterloo. Did a little bit of a stint in Europe with hockey, and now I believe we had talked about it. He's a police officer up in Peterborough, I believe.
He's the deputy chief of police in Peterborough.
In Peterborough.
Yeah.
So such a great career from 87 to 91. If you were sitting in the stands at that time, my dad and I used to come down, and there was always scouts out at that time in this arena. And the Western Mustangs coach was sitting beside us the one night, and the guy just asked my dad. He goes, "Who do you like out here?" He goes, "Watch number 17 out there," and it was Hartnett. And he had no problem picking up a school or two after his career here. So what a great career for number 17, Jamie Hartnett.
Absolutely.
All right, and moving on, number 21. One of my favorites over the years from 87 to 89 is former captain Greg Klim from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Played here for 94 games, 2 seasons with 217 points, averaging 2.31 points per game. After he left here, he went on to the University of New Hampshire, a D1 school. Also played a season in Germany. What else do we got here? He was the scoring champion in 88-89 with 112 points. and I believe he's out of Burlington now, and has a mental or wellness / coaching clinic where he helps people, move along with different things that they might need assistance with. But I remember him. He was number 9, and he always classified himself as your typical Culliton. He was, just a great player for the team, and was a great example for a captain as well.
Right.
So moving on from there is, the name is probably related to the biggest goal in Stratford Culliton history. Number 20, Mike McLeod. He played here from 86 to 91, local boy. Cherry Cup champion 87-90, and as a coach in 16 and 2023. Sutherland Cup champion in 1990. And Kasner, do you remember his goal that we're referring to?
Like yesterday.
Yeah. Do you want to take us through a little bit?
It was right behind us, right here.
Yep.
We're at the east end of the Almond. He came down the right wing, stepped to the blue line, drilled a shot, 5-hole on Chatham Maroons goalie named Mike Fountain, who went on to have a great career.
Yeah.
And it found the 5-hole, not right away.
No.
It found the 5-hole, trickled across the goal line like a shot at the Briar, like a draw to the 2-foot at the Briar,
Right.
and it trickled over the goal line, and that was it. Hit the horn.
Well, and I like
Wow.
how Holly described it, because he was mentioning his view of the shot, and he said that puck never hit the back of the net. It passed
Yeah.
the goal line and sat there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have the famous picture with him sitting in the net as the net was on its backside after that goal.
Yep.
Right.
And that book's in the 100-year book that Ian Dunamy published too. But I wanted just your thoughts on that, because it was a great time.
I think the one thing about Reuter too, there was another huge goal that he scored that year that was far less famous, but it was a fantastic goal. Was, the one here was, you could have swept it if you had to, to get it across the line. But he scored a huge goal in Waterloo. They were tied in Waterloo in the league final, and he was in the penalty box, and I was surprised. A puck got dumped out, and he jumped out of the penalty box. If he'd taken the puck, he would have been offside. He circled back, crossed the center ice red line, did a bit of a hoop to put himself back on side, because the puck had been dumped out. Stratford was shorthanded, and he had the wherewithal to jump out of the penalty box, cross the center ice red line,
Get on side.
hoop in, come in a breakaway,
Right.
and then scored. And that turned out to be the winning goal.
Wow.
So he had 2 big goals that year.
Yeah. And that was at the old Waterloo.
That was at the old bubble.
Right.
The bubble.
That was
Right.
that wasn't even in the
Yes.
barn. That was in the bubble.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just even like, when you talk to Reuter and you talk about, these instances, and, he just said, he'll tell you to this day, he didn't have a shot at the net, so he just put his head down and drove it as hard as he could, and that's how that goal occurred. That we're talking about 30+ years later. So it's those little magical moments that you can celebrate in this great hockey arena with this historic organization. So
Yeah, almost a year ago, we did that survey for the 100th anniversary show we did on the Almond Arena, and he was 95% was that goal. The other goal was the Mark Maui goal.
Right.
But
absolutely.
everybody remembers the Dennis Flanagan Jr. in Chatham. We were down there. We had him up on the broadcast, and he remembers that goal. And he said he thinks it was like 2 minutes before the puck went in the net.
Yeah.
It felt like forever. But and Mike's living his best life in Stratford here. He's a high school teacher up in Listowel.
I think he just retired.
He's talking about it. He's
Okay.
talking about it.
Okay.
But he comes into my shop. I do his hair every couple weeks, and we catch up. And it's been really cool to be able to develop a friendship with him. And we play pickleball with his wife and stuff like that. So big congrats, Mike. Congratulations to making the list. My last player for my chapter here is number 19, Searingville native Ron White. Played here from 1986 to 1990, and ladies and gentlemen, this guy was an absolute machine. He leads the franchise in goals at 163. In 143 games, he had 163 goals, 118 assists for 200. and 81 points. 95
Crazy.
minutes in the box. So he's a pretty, that type of player like a Bergeron almost, where he didn't find
Lady Bing.
Lady Bing.
Yep.
Absolutely. He went on to get a full Scully at Ohio State University, where kind of dreams are made of. Those are the things that you read about where, that's what players go, in their quest for developing a hockey career. And he was able to live that out in Ohio State. So congratulations, Ron. I believe he's still around these parts.
Yeah, he's
I
a plumber.
think- yeah.
Yep.
He's a plumber?
Still lives in Sebringville.
Yep.
Lives in Sebringville. Followed his dad's footsteps. His dad had a plumbing firm, and he followed. He's a plumber in Sebringville.
Nice.
Excellent.
Second all-time scorer with 281 points.
Yeah, just incredible.
Crazy.
And for the chapter that I did of the players that I just mentioned, congratulations to all you guys. I'm old enough to remember all you being here, so I was really thankful that I got this part of the list, because I remember every one of these players and what they brought to the organization and the reasons why they're on this list. So
All right.
that's all I got.
Great job.
Great job, Jeff. Thanks for that. So
Yeah.
now we're going to go back to Razor, and he's got some here to do. And it's a good thing we've powered through everything, because I think these ones might take Razor a little bit to get
Wow.
through.
I can't just blow by them like some of you guys have, because my goodness, like I was fortunate to play with the guys. So I asked last I said I played with these next 5 guys. Can I announce them? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So at number 18, we have Rob Blake, first ballot Hall of Famer. Pride of Simcoe, Ontario. Played just the one season. Had 31 goals, 11 assists, 31 games, 11 goals, 20 assists, and for 31 points. But man, oh man, was this guy tough. Like I watched him one time in Listowel. He ended up cranking a slap shot from center ice and ended up scoring on the goalie. Like he just had a missile. And he was the guy, like when I was in net, one of the first guys when we were in practice, and he would take shots during practice, like where it would hit you in your upper body, and you would like, it would kind of take your breath away, because he had such a heavy shot, tall, lanky guy at the time, but just had a rocket for a shot. Ended up going on here after 1 year to the BGSU pipeline down to Bowling Green. First ballot Hall of Famer. Was also inducted to the International Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. Won a cup in 2001 in Colorado with our good friend Greg DeVries, who was on last week. And became King's assistant in 2014. He actually had a stopover in New York City. He was part of the department for handing out penalties
Player
and suspensions.
safety.
Player safety,
yeah.
And he ended up winning a gold medal in the Olympics in 2002 in Salt Lake, and won the World Championships in the springs of 94 and 97 over in the World Championships, and is the current general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. So congratulations to you, Blakey.
Yeah, congratulations. And man, what a career.
Oh my God.
To basically come out of, you wouldn't have been able to tell that career was ahead of him when he was in town, right?
No,
So that's about putting the work in, and
was one of the
huge
most
kudos.
unassuming, easygoing guys. Like you would think he's like a surfer, like just laid back, had no panic, and was just full of confidence. And I remember we went down there when to Bowling Green when Pat Murray and Sean Heafy were at Michigan State. Rob was at Bowling Green with a whole bunch of Perrick Maillet, Mark Potvin, Emerson, all those guys that had come through. And we, Greg Murray, myself, and a few other local guys, we went down to Bowling Green on the Friday night. Then we went to Michigan State for the Saturday game, and it was just unbelievable to see all those guys that had come through here playing for those two teams. So
One of my stories with Rob Blake is when I was at the newspaper, I remember Denny Flanagan was disappointed because he lost Chris Pronger. He thought Pronger was going to come back for a second year, and he was going to go to Bowling Green with his brother, Sean.
right.
And anyways, it was right in the summer, a couple days before the draft, and Pronger said he was going to go to go in the draft. He ended up going to Peterborough. But it was a big secret because Peterborough drafted him really quite late.
Right.
He wasn't an early pick. I remember that fall talking to Denny about, thought Pronger was going to be a really good player for the next year. He says, well, he's a great player. We'll miss him, He says, but we found a guy that we think's going to be a good replacement for him. We think he'll be able to replace him. It was Rob Blake.
Right.
So you have two guys that win the Norris Trophy,
Right.
two guys that win Olympic gold, come here in consecutive years, and one replace the other.
Well, and Rob needed a team to play because he played the year previous for the Brantford Classics.
Who
and-
got suspended for a year.
Right, so he needed a place to
Yeah.
play, so that just fell perfect into
Yeah.
Denny's lap. That he
Shut the
wanted-
entire program down for
Right.
a year, and
Yeah.
so Rob was free to go and need a place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he got hurt that year, correct, John?
Had a separated
Yeah.
shoulder chronically.
Yeah.
He would literally go in the room and put his shoulder against the wall. Somebody would push him, and he put the shoulder back in and go back in the ice.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
My God.
And that
Yeah.
summer, he ended up going to the Fowler Kennedy
Yeah.
Clinic and had it surgically repaired there. Like, if you've ever been in that clinic, hopefully you guys haven't, but if you have, you can see all the, like, Steve Eiserman, like, there's
All of
just
them.
names, Eric Lindros, all these guys that have been to the Fowler Kennedy Clinic thanking them for whatever, shoulders, knees, whatever. And it's pretty impressive. I've been there a couple of times to see all of that.
He almost
so.
played another year in Stratford because Bowling Green was worried that he'd be able to play
Oh, really?
because he had the
With the
shoulder,
shoulder.
shoulder
Right.
surgery, and there was some speculation that he was going to come back and play as a 19-year-old and then go to Bowling Green.
Right. Was that Jerry York? That was
That
the...
Jerry York was there then. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, okay.
Congrats.
Next on the list at 17, we have another of his line mates, or teammates, Pat Murray, one of the prides of Dublin, Ontario. Pat played 2 seasons here, 78 games, 47 goals, 102 assists for 149 points. He's another guy who could have been in the talk for Lady Bing. He only had 48 penalty minutes in his 2 years here. Played here from 85 to 87. Got drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers. Averaged 1.91 points per game. Went on to a full scholarship to Michigan State University with Sean Heafy. Played 25 games with the Flyers. Had a great AHL, IHL, and European career. And he's currently a partner at West Point Financial Group in Carmel, Indiana.
So, for those who may not know, Rem Murray, who I mentioned on the list, they are in fact brothers.
Absolutely.
And
Just in case.
and another fun fact, they both didn't play together, but both ended with the exact same number of points.
Really?
149 points each.
Wow.
And both ended up at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, both smart guys, like not only great hockey players, but smart in the classroom too. Number 16, probably one of the greatest snipers. Statistically, he's the greatest Cullitons scorer, points per game, 1.52 goals per game in his junior B career. Sean Heafy played 77 games, had 117 goals, 95 assists, 212 points, and he had some sandpaper too. He had 247 penalty minutes, played here 85 to 87. Ended up getting drafted by the Calgary Flames in the supplemental draft. And I should say, Pat won a Sutherland Cup as well in 85-86. So did Sean. And the two of them were line mates. Sean's from Sudbury, Ontario. And he averaged 2.75 points per game while he was here. Played one game for Calgary, like I said. Played in the American Hockey League. Had a great European career. And he's a founding partner out in Connecticut, I believe, a group called Power Play Energy Group. So, Sean Heafy, congratulations.
It holds a number of records here in town too.
Yeah.
Shorthanded goals in a season, 10. Most goals in a game was 7 against
Yeah.
Guelph.
Which was, like, basically, free money when we would play teams like that.
Well,
but still.
Like you mentioned too, with your experience with him, Razor, with that 85-86 team, like you had the 350 goal scorers right up the middle, and Wasn't he? Was he a rookie or
He was a rookie.
a
Yeah.
rookie scoring 50 goals?
Yep. He was him, Pat Murray, and myself were all rookies on the team. Jamie Petrie, and the three 50-goal centermen that we had down the middle were Emerson, Warren Bullock, and Sean Heafy. And so when we ended up playing Streetsville in the finals, we swept them. That year, our team went 56-4-1 from regular season in the playoffs. Who the heck are these teams going to cover? You got 3 50-goal centermen, right down the middle. And he was so helpful to me. Like, I had never played with a sniper like him. And he used to say to me, you got to do this. And with him being a left-hand shot, and I've told guys like Joey Hish and, these secrets too that Heath told me. Because when a goalie butterflies a left-hand shot with a goalie that catches left, he would put it a foot over the ice because it's getting over your pad, but it's below your blocker. And I would have to cheat on my blocker side, or else I couldn't stop Heafy. Like we would come in and play showdown
with the velocity of a shot.
Velocity, accuracy, like he was just a pure sniper.
Sorry, I meant accuracy.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, like
throw the old knuckleball.
Right. No,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
Heath, congratulations. I had the pleasure of talking to him. I took a Hail Mary and phoned him yesterday. He goes, "You'll never guess what I'm up to." And I said, "What are you up to?" He says, "I'm down in Fort Myers. We're out on a $1 million yacht with my brother and his buddies." So he goes, "You just made my day." He goes, "I thought I was having a good day." He goes, "You made my day,"
Nice.
like telling me and letting me know that.
Probably
So-
having a terrible time, but
Absolutely.
Trying to make it
now
work.
that it's warmer,
Yeah.
down there, right?
Yeah.
Not like last month where it was like 42, 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
Quick one-game story about Heafy, maybe more significant than 7 goals against Guelph in a game. Game 1 of the Sutherland Cup final. Stratford's going to Streetsville. Stratford's toughest team in Ontario, there's no question. Everybody's fearful of them. They ran over Pickering, that included Joe Newendike and
Right.
a couple players like that. They all got the Streetsville flu, had no interest in playing the rest of
Yep.
that. They came in here on a Friday night, barns packed, probably 3,100 people here.
Yep.
They start taking penalties right off the hop. We end up with a huge brawl with 2 minutes to go in the first period, and a guy named Billy McDougall,
Yep.
who was the captain for Streetsville, went after Heafy at center ice, and Heafy had 3 power play goals in the first period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were up 5-0 at the end of the first period. Heafy had 3 on the power play, and Billy McDougall went after him. We're going to talk about another guy in a little bit, but Heath sort of made his way over to the bench when the bench was beside each other. And I remember that Heath was standing in front of the bench. A couple Streetsville guys were trying to get at him. And Walt Morris grabbed Heafy, pulled him in the bench, and Walt came out. and there was so much going on.
Jeff Morris jumped off the boards
Yeah.
onto the ice like Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
There was a few things there. Jeff Ernest.
Jeff Ernest.
Anyways, I remember Heath. I was up in the press box. You could see over at Heath's there. All of a sudden, he's in and Walt Morris is out. But I'll talk more about that later. But Heath had 3 power play goals in the first period.
Crazy.
Natural 3 hat tricks or 3 power play goals in a row for a natural hat trick.
He led our team in scoring in the playoffs that year. Like everyone was focused on, we got to stop Emerson, which they had to.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, but Heath, as a rookie, ended up leading the team in scoring that year in the playoffs. So.
Well, just 2 quick things about Heath. One is his first year he had 50 goals.
Yep.
He had 14 at Christmas. He had
Just
14
right.
goals at
Right.
the Christmas break. He finished with 50. And a guy named Rick Tarasuk was the coach for Streetsville. And he had called me again for the internet. And he said, well, we look at the Stratford team. If we shut down the line that's with Heafy, Warren Bullock, and Emerson, we've really, all their scoring comes in one line. We got to concentrate in that one line. And I said to Rick Tarasuk, I said, those are 3 different lines.
Right.
And those are the 3 different centers.
Right.
And he said to me, he goes, piss off.
Right.
I said, no. I said, they do play together in the power play.
Right.
He goes, oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, great memories, great memories.
Well, and that would be something that you would just automatically think that if they're feeding each other and they're all snipers, that it's just one line, and if you shut them down, you
Yeah.
might be in good shape.
Sure.
No.
Yep.
It's 3 lines.
We had like guys like Steve Sheffley, he was
Yeah.
another high scoring right winger, and
Yeah.
it was just, you couldn't focus on one line. And when I was texting back and forth with Kendrick, I just said, like, we had 8 guys drafted pro off that team, and he's like, wow. Like, he said, like, we had a good team, but like, you guys were just unbelievably blessed. And I said, absolutely.
Oh yeah, you're into an incredible stat pack now on the list here, right? Like, looking at what these guys did in a short amount of time here,
Yeah.
playing hockey was just incredible. So I can imagine how you felt, Gary, in net at practice twice a week.
Unbelievable.
Razor, you'd have to remember Heafy and St. Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
In St. Thomas, when what was the score? 9-5.
Oh,
in the,
yeah.
9-5 in the third period for St. Thomas, and
Yeah.
they took a double minor.
Yeah.
And Heafy skated by the bench and said, "You guys are gonna lose." Eh?
Yeah.
A couple of guys stood up at the bench and said, "No, you'll lose."
Yeah.
I think it was like the New England Patriots,
Right.
28-3.
Yeah.
I think it was 9-5 with 14 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And it ended up being 10-9.
And they said, "Watch
Yeah.
this."
Yeah, watch this. Yeah.
It wasn't like Matt Murden was a great goalie. He didn't make the list, but by God, he was such a good goalie. And that was just one of his off nights. Like, he had a few off nights. Obviously, he's human. But you're right. Like, we could run and gun with anybody. And he just had this confidence about him. And he literally believed it and would go out and do it.
Yeah.
That was the thing about him. Like, he wasn't just blowing smoke. He would actually back it up. So,
Just taking one moment here to go to our comment section. Mark McIntosh, thanks for tuning in, pal. Was mentioning Ronnie White was a hell of a ball player.
Great
Yeah.
softball player.
Yeah.
Really
Played on
good.
either Team Ontario or maybe Team Canada.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
We got
So-
some of those dual sports players on this
Yeah.
list, so
Yeah, but thanks, Sarah Mac. Thanks for tuning in.
I'm
Yeah.
scouting the Timbits out on the ice and future Cullitons Warriors out there for you, Clarkie.
Yeah, perfect. Take down some names here.
right.
Yeah,
So number
General's grandson. There you go. Number 4.
there you go.
So number 15 on the list, Warren Bullock. My God, one of the 3 centers that had a 50-goal season that year, the 85-86 team. 82 games over 2 seasons, 106 goals, 105 assists for 211 points. Played from 84 to 86. It's from Kitchener, Ontario. And he ended up being the 4th all-time points leader. Yeah, I think I got that.
4th
right.
all time on the Cullitons / Warriors.
Yeah.
Nice.
Average 2.57 points per game. Went to Western University with our good friend Dave Cassoni. Played over there. And then he ended up becoming a teacher or a principal. I'm not sure. I've tried to reach out to him, asking guys for phone numbers so I could touch base with them, and nobody seems to have his number. So congratulations, Bully. John, you probably remember in game 1, he ended up getting into a fight. Like, that's Streetsville wanted to fight everybody.
Yeah.
Scott Rex ended up teeing off with McDougall. That wasn't there was the 2 McDougall brothers.
Yeah, that was Steve.
Yeah.
And that was MAC.
Right.
Yeah, same
And-
name, different spelling.
And so he ended up getting into a fight, and I've told the story before on a previous podcast where after Rexy and this guy got out of the box, they got roughings, and they came out of the box. They went toe-to-toe at center ice. Both helmets were off. Well, Tommy Niger, Rexy told Tommy to go and get a hacksaw, and Rexy ended up hacksawing McDougall's helmet and threw it at him. Bully got into a fight, and in our team picture, our year-end team picture, he's got a black eye, and we're like, Bully, like, don't you be doing that. We got other things for you to do, like score. Don't be getting into fights there, big guy. So kudos to Warren
Classic
Bullock.
Canadian, though.
Right?
You got your championship photo. Guy's got a black eye.
Absolutely. It's fantastic.
And it was a beauty.
It was.
It
Like,
was
it
a
wasn't
beauty.
a little one. Like,
No.
it was a great shiner. So we, and he was one of those guys, one of the veterans. That was his last year of junior eligibility. He took all of us rookies under his wing. Him and Walt Morris, like, they were just fantastic. Couldn't ask for better leaders in the room. And they made, like, Pat Murray, Sean Heafy, myself, Jamie Petrie, just feel like part of the team. Whether you would go out to the old Mother's Pizza Parlor, we would go out there for, team meals and stuff. Like, it was just a great atmosphere, and it's because of those guys. Like, we had a lot of fun. We used to party a lot too, but Denny let us. Oh yeah,
Razor.
Right. But there's some teams that like to party, but if you don't produce on the ice, well, then that's when Denny would step in and say a few things. But Denny let us do our thing because we were able to back it up on the ice whenever we had to. But
150 goals down the middle. You guys probably had a lot of rope.
oh, yeah. A lot of rope, right? Just make sure you're at the bus on time. That's all you would worry about.
I just
right?
got to tell a quick story about Warren Bullock when you talked about ended his junior career here. So he had a great junior career. He played in Toronto.
Okay.
And then he
Henry Carr.
Played Henry Carr. Then he came and played 2 years here. So we were after they drained the river in the spring.
Right.
And so they get out there, and Robin Wilhelm came back and he said there was a pair of skates that were right out in the middle of the river.
Right.
And they were in a piece of styrofoam.
Yep.
So I talked to Tommy about it, and I said, "What was the story on that?" He goes, "Warren Bullock was a fan of rock music, and when Jimi Hendrix would finish a concert, he would set fire to his guitar." and Warren Bullock, after his last game, walked out here, celebrated all that stuff, had a piece of styrofoam, put the two skates in the styrofoam, sent the styrofoam out in the river, and then they sank. And he said that was the deal.
True story.
Wow.
True story.
True story. And then Robin came back. He said, "There's these two skates in the middle of the river. Like, did somebody skate on the river in the winter and drown, or what happened?"
Yeah.
And
Where's the body?
No. I said, "No, that's the story. It's like the classic rock guy.
Yeah.
These are never going to be used again."
Exactly. He
That's
was
pretty
a
cool, actually.
beauty.
Yep.
Yeah, so cool. All right, and my last guy to announce. Holy moly, I was so blessed to be able to learn so much from him. Nelson Emerson played 2 years, 84 to 86. Played 79 games. He had 77 goals, 96 assists for 173 points. From Watford, Ontario, averaged 2.19 points per game, and he ended up going to Bowling Green State University as well. After Bowling Green, he went on to a 12-year NHL career, got drafted by St. Louis Blues, played for Winnipeg, Hartford, Carolina, Chicago, Ottawa, Atlanta, and LA, and now he's the assistant general manager with the Kings, with Blake being the GM and Scott Rex being a pro scout with the Kings. So congratulations, Emmer. I know you're over in Europe. I was texting with him there last night and let him know the good news that he had made the list, and he was just really appreciative. Like, he's often said it when anyone ever asks him. These are some of the fondest years of his hockey career playing here in Stratford. So congratulations, buddy, and all the best to you.
I
Hopefully-
think growing up in this town and the Cullitons being, as you're a kid, what you want to do or who you want to play for, and I was just right in that wheelhouse when he was introduced and came to camp and made the team and was instantly impactful. And I remember him probably the most from my childhood, and he was the first kind of example that I saw when all of a sudden, wow, like, he's playing in the NHL.
Right.
I'll never forget that. I was a little too young for Old Chuck. So Nelson Emerson was kind of my guy that, you literally got to see him here, and then you see him on Hockey Night in Canada.
Right.
Pretty cool feeling.
And the one thing I remember about Emerson, I was playing midget his first year that he came, and being a huge Gretzky fan, I loved that Gretzky had these blue Perfecta blades.
Yeah.
They had just come out, and Emmer had red Perfecta blades when he came to Stratford, and I'm like, wow, this guy is so cool. And he could skate like a rocket, like he was in full flight, like 2 strides.
He had a
in.
pro shot too here in town. when he played.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, like
Unbelievable, like
ridiculous.
fast. He was like the equivalent of Connor McDavid. Like, he was that good.
Yeah.
Stick handle, quick, like slippery.
Yeah, all of it.
Set up, like, just so good. And like, just so blessed to have played with guys like him and Heafy and Bullock and Blake and Murray and Walt Morris, and just Such a powerhouse team. So no wonder that team went 56-4-1.
I can't say I didn't see all the players play here. Like in 22 years, I didn't see them all, and saw some after, as a fan and that sort of stuff. But I got to tell you, the players I saw, best player ever.
Nelson
Emerson.
Best player.
Yep.
And he was one of the rare guys here who was an NHL pick when he was here.
Right.
He didn't get drafted afterwards. He came to Stratford as a current National Hockey League pick. He was a third-round pick, St. Louis Blues.
Yep.
And they said you can go back to Stratford, if you can imagine that. The only other ones I think were Mike Golden and Gar Snow. They were NHL picks when they were here.
Right.
Guys got drafted after, but Emerson, best player I ever saw.
Yeah. And it was no coincidence that Bobby Clark and all these other NHL scouts and GMs were always in the stands. And like we'd come out of the rink, and this scout from schools, NCAA, OHL, NHL would be talking with Emerson, and like it was nonstop, and he was just so gracious with kids, like signing autographs, and just a good guy, like a real humble.
I refer to the
guy.
corner just over here, this sort of curve here. When I was a sports writer, I referred to that as Prospect Hill, because that's where all the scouts stood.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the NHL scouts, college scouts, OHL guys all stood there, and often referred to that Prospect Hill.
Prospect Hill.
Yeah.
And he was his billet was Bud Graper, with his stay here in Stratford, and my dad used to be great friends with him, and he was a big deal when he was here, and you knew he was going places.
Yeah.
So,
And what was the overall record of that team? Because it was the greatest team in
56-4-1.
yeah.
Clarky, you were going to say something?
Well, you mentioned the word gracious when you were talking about Nelson, and I can tell you from being with the hockey club in this role in the last 4 years, I would definitely describe him with that same word. Anytime that we've reached out to Nelson or Rob Blake about anything to do with the hockey club, right away we get a response. They love talking about the hockey club. Often, if we need anything from them, a video message, we're going into a playoff round, they'll send us a message from wherever they are in their world. We got a message from them 1 year before one of their playoff games in Edmonton. They sent us a message from their box in Edmonton pregame. But it just goes to show how much guys did love playing here, and they continually give back to our hockey club. And for the 50th anniversary here, we floated out some messages to some former guys if they'd like to say anything on behalf of the team. Right away, Nelson had something back. So we can't thank them enough. They continue to support the hockey club, and we're very, very lucky for that.
Yeah,
Great.
Last-
And I think that's
last
why
one-
it's such a. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, last fun fact about Nelson Emerson, one of the rare guys, Hobie Baker candidate all 4 years at Bowling Green.
crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And just for the record, for those who don't know, that's a rarity. It doesn't happen very often, if ever, for 4 years, especially as a freshman.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Right.
So
Yeah, and and maybe some don't, because we do have some viewers that maybe aren't total hockey fans. The Hobie Baker is the top like MVP player, national award in United States D1 college hockey.
It's the Heisman of hockey.
Right.
It's a
Exactly.
Heisman of hockey.
The
Heisman.
Heisman.
It's a Heisman
The
trophy of
Heisman.
hockey. Yeah.
Exactly. Well put.
Yeah.
And just a great guy. He's all of those guys are all so humble, and that's the great thing about it. So
absolutely.
So yeah. Now on to John's 13 players.
Yeah, we gave John the most because this was his jam, was these players. The first player he's going to talk about, I remember him coming into that meeting saying, "Hey, we missed somebody. This guy needs to be on the list. I missed somebody."
Yeah.
But and
Yep.
well said, Les. One thing I'd like to say, John, it's such a privilege to have you here tonight, and understanding your career with the local press and local newspaper and local media, and you're a fixture in this town, part of the fabric, and you can rhyme off a story about any of these players. Meanwhile, there's 800 of them that you could probably talk about. But I just really wanted, on behalf of the Armchair Chirpers, we're really fortunate to have you here, and very thankful that you're here. And that's why we kind of wanted to give you the top couple players that you're going to announce. And just thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for being here.
Like when we formed the committee, the first name that came up was John Kastner.
Right.
We need John Kastner. And then I got a hold of John, and he messaged right back, and he says, we need Steve Rice. And we got Steve Rice. And it just went on from there. And
Yeah.
John was a catalyst on how we could figure out this list because he had done it with the IBL.
Yeah, we done with the IBL. Yeah.
So he had an idea because we were like saying, what do we do? How do we classify this? Because there's just you can't just say, oh, you had to be here 2 years or you needed 100 points.
Well,
Yeah,
I
because
think
it
not
left a
black
lot
and
of players.
white.
John,
yeah.
is that not Holly was mentioning that might have been part of the struggle with the IBL is because it was all these things that you had to qualify to even be on it, and it was almost a little bit exhausting, was it not?
And so we eliminated so many players when we did the top 100 for the 100 years of the Intercounty Baseball League, and we started right by saying, well, first of all, you had to play 4 years. That's the first thing. You had to be on an all-star team multiple years, and if you weren't one of those things, you got eliminated right away.
Right.
And then that really whittled it down. And then, but here we weren't able to do that because you've got some guys like Rob Blake needs to be here. He played 31 games.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Chris
so-
Pronger.
Chris Pronger. And so it was a much more subjective process here than the IBL. Herb Morrell really helped with the IBL, and it was almost analytical. There was a statistical sorting that went through there that really helped, and we didn't have that here.
Right. Right.
I do. Maybe we can release it after the final list. You know what? Let's do it after. Let's
Okay.
do it after. Okay.
All right. So for number 13 was Phil Berger. For a long time, there's a number of American players, and Denny Flanagan was really one of the first people before the Ontario Hockey League got into it, before, you saw a lot more of it, but to bring Americans in here. So on this list, I think there's 4 Americans. I think there's Eric Anderson, and then Phil Berger.
Right.
And Phil Berger was from Detroit, pure scorer. Went to Western Michigan. Another Hobie Baker finalist. The one thing I think interesting about that, he had, in his 2 years here, had 98 goals. He also missed 7 games for suspensions. He got 3. In his last year, he got 3 games one time, and then he got 4 times for butt ending for another. So he missed 7 games this last year, and still ended up with a whack of points. One of those guys who was a pure scorer here, went on to the U.S., played in the East Coast Hockey League. I think Steve Rice and I were talking about he may be the all-time goal scorer in the East Coast Hockey League.
Yeah, he's
I
in the
think
Hall
you're
of Fame.
right.
Yeah. The next 2 guys are Mark LeVar and Ed Olchuk. Those 2 are synonymous. You don't really refer to one without referring to the other. They
Right.
both came from Chicago. Again, Americans. Both great goal scorers. LeVar, blazing speed, really changed that team that year. He had gone. He'd started the year as a winger for Olchuk. Team was sort of 500 at Christmas time. Dave Cressman made a sort of bold move, put LeVar back at the point on the power play, and then he ran the point on the power play and then played a little bit of defense as well. So a real change there. Mark LeVar, interesting story there. When he left here, he got drafted by North Bay.
Yep.
And you think about how things have changed now. He went to North Bay, and Bert Templeton suspended him because he got selected to the U.S. World Junior team.
Right.
Now, OHL teams sort of celebrate that. They think
Yeah.
that's fantastic. They raise a banner for the guy.
Right.
He left for the World Junior team for 3 weeks, and Bert Templeton never played him again.
Really.
Yeah, he came back. He came back from the World Junior tournament. Bert Templeton, he was a healthy scratch for the rest of the year. And over the summer, they tried to get a trade. He almost came back here, and he ended up getting traded to Wayne Maxner in
London?
In
Or
London.
where- yeah.
In London. And he said, here's the deal. Bert Templeton called and said, drive to London. You're either going to play for London or Windsor. They're playing their night. When you get to the rink, ask around, see which team you're on. so he had sat out until
love it.
it was into October of the second year. So he almost missed about 10 months of his career.
Crazy.
And then ended up Wayne Max was actually in Windsor at the time. He ended up in London later, but he was a coach in Windsor, and LeVar played there. Great player.
Wow.
He also was critical to, we talk about that great goal that was here, where Mark Maui tied up the game,
Right.
With 7 seconds to go.
Yep.
Old Chuck, the next guy we're to talk about, wins the face-off. Craig Simpson takes it back to the point. Guy named Brad Jansen for London had taken a penalty for an illegal stick. And so Stratford went on the power play. Maui scored. They went into double overtime. LeVar had a Charlie horse, and LeVar had left the game in the first period. They go in the dressing room between the first and second overtime. LeVar puts the stuff back on, comes out and scores in overtime.
Unbelievable.
And he's had his stuff off for 2 hours.
Crazy.
And comes out and scores.
Of course he did.
Ed Olchuk, I mean, you talk about, Jim Ben was maybe one of the first Americans to come here. Ed Olchuk came here in 82, 83, along with a goaltender named Dan Quillis. Olchuk, LeVar, and Quillis. Olchuk was a 16-year-old. So you think about a guy 16.
Yeah.
So he MVP, won the scoring title, won the Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
And also broke the single season points record.
It's crazy.
As a 16-year-old. And we think about his, and then really dragged that team along,
Yep.
who was, again, 500 at Christmas, dragged them through the playoffs where they got to Henry Carr. Olchuk, a 16-year-old centerman, played defense in the last 2 games because Stratford was out
They
of
were
players.
decimated.
They were out of players.
Yep.
And Olchuk was there. But if you think about things, you go, how significant a player was he? How fast did he develop? So you think about he played here in May, and in that January, he played in the U.S. Olympics.
Yeah.
He was on the Olympic team the season after leaving here. And,
That's
and the
crazy.
next season, he played in the Olympic team as a 17-year-old, and then after that, as an 18-year-old, played in the National Hockey League.
It's crazy.
And you just those things just don't happen.
Yeah.
They don't happen ever again.
I remember him being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. There was him, Pat LaFontaine, and I forget who the third guy was. And Ed, being 16 years old, had his hands up as LaFontaine and another guy are playing the bubble hockey.
Right.
And they were on the Kevin Smith, local boy. He got Sports Illustrated, so I would read him all the time when I'd go over there. And thinking, like, wow, this guy just played in Stratford, like, not even a year ago. Yeah. And that was the same year when he went to the Olympic team. LeVar went to the World Junior team.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Special, like superstar as a young kid in town here. There was a contest in the paper. You had to write a letter into the Beacon for a chance to skate with Ed Olchuk.
wow.
I was one of the kids selected.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
I
So
remember
myself
that.
and there was 2 or 3 other local hockey players here.
Yep.
We got to come out and spend some time on the ice with Ed Olchuk. We got our picture in the paper, and the paper printed our letters into the editor talking about minor hockey. I think I was in minor Adam or something at the
Wow.
time. But I remember he was out here with his USA jersey on.
Yep.
Couple photos. Yeah, I was playing, I think, the
So, like,
McDonald's Major
it's-
Adams. or
those
something
are the
like that.
things.
Wow.
Like, here we are, decades later. Like, what a great story.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
they knew what he was like. That he was bound for greatness.
Yeah.
Just how great he was.
And
It's
John
awesome.
mentioned those 3 Americans that came. So the guy sitting behind me over here before that time, he was just Don MacArthur. When those guys came up, he became the general, Don MacArthur.
General Don MacArthur. Yeah. Olchuk in the summer, I was in Chicago this summer and sent him a text message. And I said, Eddie, I'm going to eat in Chicago. Is there someplace I should go? And he said, yeah, you got to go to the Chicago Cut. I said, okay. So went to the Chicago Cut, and he said, ask for so-and-so. So I think so-and-so works there, and I get in there, and maitre d's there, gorgeous restaurant.
Right.
And I said, I'm supposed to ask for so-and-so. Gave the person his name, said, you what? I said, yeah, I'm supposed to ask for so-and-so. Does he work here? He said, well, he owns the place.
Oh, really?
I said, oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Anyways, about 20 minutes later, he comes over, guy comes over, sits down, said, you're a friend of Ed Olchuk's? I said, I am. Pulls up a chair, sits down next, talks to us about the restaurant, and talks about Chicago and all that sort of
Right.
stuff. And that's just one of those Ed Olchuk things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Such a
right.
good guy.
Big with the ponies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kentucky Derby winner,
Yeah.
right? He had a horse win the
Yeah.
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
So, number 10, Walt Morris, Stratford guy, another guy who played. He played junior B in Kitchener, came here later on, finished here as a captain, and he took that team he won the Cherry Cup in 82 and 86. And he was a captain of that team, Razor, that
Yep.
85-86 team.
Yep.
And that team was stacked with talent, and Walt was the perfect captain for that team.
100%.
He was, he was a great big physical presence, and he was on the power play on that team. He, was a great player. I talk about how that, very pivotal game 1 against Streetsville, could have gone either way. Streetsville came in here, and I remember 2 things. I mentioned where he grabbed Heafy, pulled Heafy into the bench. Walt skated center ice, and then skated full blast at the Streetsville bench. And he skated full blast at the bench, no helmet, no gloves, and he's reaching to the bench trying to pull somebody onto the ice.
Crazy.
And that sort of changed everything.
Yeah.
And Scott Rex had worked over that Steve McDougall.
Yes.
And then Wald had jumped into the bench. And after the game, I talked to a guy. He was on the team, a guy named Colin Hanfeld. And I'd interviewed Colin Hanfeld afterwards and talked to the coach. And coach said, we got to quit taking penalties, and we got to do this and got to do that. And I said, can I talk to one of the McDougalls? They said, no, the Hanfeld kid will come out. And I remember Colin Hanfeld said, so I said, you give up 9 power play goals. Like, if you got to sort of change the way you play, he says, well, we need to change the way we play. He said,
Right.
or somebody's going to get hurt. And I said, oh, is it like, if, like you sort of lost most of the fights here. Like,
Right.
somebody's going to get hurt. He says, yeah, I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah, he is.
he says, Walt Morris, that captain, that number 3 come flying here. He says, I am not interested in he said, so yes, we have to change the way I play because I'm going to get hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then Colin came here the next year.
Colin
That
came
was
here
the crazy thing.
Because Streetsville got suspended for a year. They closed that program down.
Right.
So
for a
that
year.
was also back in the day where if you got suspended, you could buy the player back.
Yeah,
Correct?
$50 you could buy him back.
Yeah.
I remember Brent Lads going into Game 4 in Streetsville. He had told Streetsville they couldn't. Buying players back was an option, and he revoked the option for 7 guys.
Right.
There's 7 guys who are not going to play, and that was after Game 3, which was equally stupid.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of problems at McDonald's and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
Scott Skinner, another Stratford guy, and I think the community should take great pride out of the 50 guys here, the number of Stratford players that are here. So,
absolutely.
Scott Skinner was, Chisholm, Barton, and Skinner. These 3 guys are together. It's not by accident. So Scott Skinner, Paul Barton, Ken Chisholm. Look at those 3 guys. They were the kid line here, played great here, played a couple years. Both went on to play U.S. College. And, a local line of all 3 guys playing here together. And they were all great players. Scott was sort of the honest defensive guy on that guy, the left wing lock guy, a little bit more responsible. And Barton and Chisholm, Paul Barton and Ken Chisholm, both great players here.
Yep.
And we have a brother combination with Rem and Pat, and then Murray, and then we got Paul and Andrew Barton, for a father and son combination.
That's awesome.
Which I think is pretty cool. If we go to number 6, Dan Forget. So Dan Forget, a guy came out of New Liskeard, Ontario. I often thought, as we look through this list, were we going to have another father-son combination there with Jason Forget?
Right.
And he was in the mix.
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning.
Yep.
You almost had a father-son there. Jason was a great player as well, a guy who lives around here, see him at the golf course all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Forget, not a big guy.
Right.
Like Jason Forget, pure scorer, Sutherland Cup champion 2 years. Not a big guy, went into Streetsville, no problem. Went into Streetsville and competed in there, a hostile environment. And, Dan Forget was one of the number of guys that came from that part of Northern Ontario. Tim Holt came from there.
Yes.
Doug Kerr came from there. Number of guys came from New Liskeard. And Dan Forget was really key to that. And his dad was actively involved in the midget program up there. And I think that saw that it was a good place to play. And as a result of that, a lot of kids came here from New Liskeard. Even previous to that, guys like Dennis Morton came here. Paul Boudreau came here.
Right.
They are both from the Tri-City, New Liskeard, Haleyberry, South Porcupine. And Stratford did really well out of guys from up there. Yeah. Okay.
Was Was Prevost from there? New Linskard? No, he
Andre
was
Prevost?
Andre Prevost was from Kapuskasing.
Kapuskasing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and he
thank
came
you.
here from St. Mary's.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so he
Yes.
was in St. Mary's and sort of fell out of favor over there, and then came here partway through.
89,
the year.
90.
Yeah. So Ross Yancey, another guy with family connections here. You know, there's another guy with a Ross Yancey, Reed Yancey.
Yeah.
You know, almost another father-son combination there. But I
Right.
think it really warrants mentioning. Here's a guy who you had to look at. You know, you say, well, defenseman, you can't look at points. Well, he averaged a point a game. You know, ran the power play for Jack Nairn. Was a really solid defenseman. Absolute great shot blocker. You think about like an lost art. You know, Ross Yancey would block shots like crazy. Plus ran the power play. Then went to New Hampshire. Had a great university career at New Hampshire as well.
That was quite a. I didn't realize it before Dan Forget and Paul Barton were on our podcast. But at one time, you had Frank Barth, Ross Yancey, Paul Barton, and Ken Chisholm all at New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Like that's
And Dan McPherson.
Dan McPherson.
Yeah.
That was quite a pipeline.
Yeah, so that was really the first before Bowling Green. You know, came. Charlie Holt was the coach in New Hampshire, and he was a regular guy up here. He and Denny became friends somehow, and that was really the default place for guys to go
Right.
was New Hampshire, and
Yeah.
Stratford took a lot of players out of there.
And then Terry Flanagan became part of Jerry York's coaching staff, and then the pipeline
That's right. So,
sort of got repositioned down to BG.
yeah, so Terry Flanagan was at New Hampshire and then became an assistant coach.
Okay.
And then that really became the connection with Charlie Holt. They became friends with Denny, all that sort of stuff.
Right,
And that's why he
right.
ended up all players there. And then when Terry left there, he ended up going to Bowling Green.
Right.
And then all of a sudden players started going to Bowling Green.
Yeah.
And that became the new pipeline. Plus Charlie left at New Hampshire.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And now the new pipeline is with Dennis Williams being at Bowling Green.
Right.
So now, who was it that committed to
Quinn
BG?
Kipfer.
Quinn
Quinn
Kipfer.
Kipfer, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tyson Higgins.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, sorry,
Tyler.
Tyler. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tyler Higgins.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Just before you go, Joe Hishin chimed in that he said Mark LeVar with that Charlie Hurts was still the fastest player on the ice.
That's right. Joe Senior was on that team.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could just absolutely fly. Well, you talk about guys with a story. Number 4 is Pat Kelly. So you look at Pat Kelly, he had 52 points in 2 years, and you go, how's he on this list? Well, Pat Kelly, as legends go, I think deserves a special place. So Pat was the same age as me. We hung around together as kids. We grew up a little bit. His mother used to babysit me in Seymour, so I knew Pat. And Pat was a really good player here. He was a good player here his first year. He's assistant captain here his first year. And then his dad died, and his dad ran a company called W.G. Kelly Construction. They built bridges.
Okay.
And Pat had worked for his dad and had to take over the company. And that was the deal. Couldn't play hockey.
Right.
And he said, got to run Dad's company and all that sort of stuff. And Denny signed him anyways. Denny put him on a card at the deadline. And they went into Streetsville, played out here. And I think the score was 9-1 or 9-0 maybe in game 1.
Yeah.
That Streetsville had beat Stratford 9-0, 10-1, something like that in game 1. And they had run absolutely roughshod over everybody. And the Chisholm, Barton, Skinners of the world,
Yeah.
they didn't want to be there.
Sure.
And
John
Well, no,
Wilson.
it was actually the year before that. It was like John Wilson,
Yeah.
Scott Skinner,
Right.
guys those age. They didn't want to be there.
Frank
And,
Barth.
Yeah, and they were pretty intimidating.
Sure.
Then he got a hold of Pat Kelly, and he was building a bridge in Kingston. And Denny said, we just need you to take 3-4 games. That's all we need. So one of them was Sunday. So you're not building the bridge on Sunday anyways. Can you come to Streetsville? So they brought equipment down for him, including a new pair of skates.
Wow.
Pat Kelly was maybe one of the strongest people, and I actually played sort of rec hockey with him, adult industrial league hockey with him years later. And Pat was still strong. He had arms like Popeye. And Mark Flanagan was sort of a stick in that team. Said they brought in the skates, put the skates on, hadn't had them all year. Team's already on the ice. He just got there in time, goes to tie up his skates, pulls the laces, and breaks the laces.
Brand new skates.
and snapped the laces. Said, I need new laces. And put the laces on. And he went out, and there was a guy named Boyington who had played in the American Hockey League for Streetsville. Tough guy. And he had lied to his defenseman. He's going to play center ice. He lines up at center. Jack starts Pat Kelly at center. Pat fights him at the 2-second mark and beats him up for 90 seconds.
Wow.
Throws him all over, ragdolls him over the rink for 90 seconds. And then in the third period, Stratford's winning, I think, 5-2. In the third period, a guy jumps Pat. Pat fights him, beats him up, throws him down the ice, pulls the net on top of him, and then fights a second guy. and then Stratford won that game and then won 3 of the next 4 to win the Sutherland Cup.
Crazy.
And you talk about, when you go to pick a guy,
Right.
Stratford had all sorts of talent. They had good enough goaltending. Maybe didn't have enough toughness, and that he was the
He
difference.
was the tipping point.
He
Yeah.
changed everything.
Right.
And not only was he tough, but everybody else got tougher.
Rod Baleharts
Yeah,
and
and Rod Beilhart's on that team. Mark Thiel was on that team,
Yep.
and all of a sudden, everybody's tougher.
yes.
It's
What
one
a
of those.
great story.
Yeah, it's one of those
Great
stories.
story.
Is it real or is it myth? Right?
You gotta wonder. And I'm not sure. I'm not going to sit here and say that story's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I'll tell as true as I remember.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I remember it to be accurate.
He was
Yeah.
one of the hardest guys to get information on
Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
because
Yeah.
the internet. It's trying to catch up to some of this old stuff, but it's just not there.
Yeah.
Right.
And I still run into Pat once in a while, once in a long time, and it's, and he's not changed.
Really?
No, he's not changed.
Oh man.
Part of that team is John Wilson. John Wilson, he won Sutherland Cup twice. Won in 77, 78, a rare feat. And, Wilson, 1.89 points per game. Went on to play Division I at Lake Superior. One of one of those Stratford guys. Before it was common for somebody to go to play U.S. college, he went on and played at Lake State. And, he was a great player in that period, too.
Funny story about John Wilson. I was talking with him yesterday, John, and he said, Razor, he said, in that series with Streetsville, he goes, I absolutely hated this guy named Sherman. I forget his first name. So that year, the first year, Stratford had a goalie, Randy Sherman, but he said there was another Sherman on Streetsville that I hated, and I got into it with him behind the net. And he said, after I was done playing in Stratford, I go to Lake State, and he says, who's my roommate? Sherman. And he
Really?
said, so him and I were roommates on, first year freshman for Lake Superior State. And he said him and I became really good friends. So it's,
Well, there's hockey right there. Isn't that hockey?
Yeah.
Did he own the McDonald's here in town, or was that
No.
somebody? That was another
No,
John
it was a
Wilson.
that was a different.
Yes, that's right. John Wilson was a cop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, police officer. Would he with you, Clark?
Yep, yeah,
He
I was
worked
there
with you?
for the
Yeah.
end of John's career. He was a detective when I first came on the police service here in town, and John retired out of the detective office.
Yes.
I said, Wilson, what is it that you do with the police station? He goes, Razor. He says, if I come, he says, I'm like the Grim Reaper. Something really has gone wrong if I show up to any event. So I said, all right, fair enough.
For sure.
So Dennis Flanagan, I think Dennis made, in my mind, I put him on the list, and in my mind, he made on his merits as a player. He was a really great player his last year, 1.69 points per game. But a couple other things about him. One was, you talk about sort of rare trivia questions. Dennis was the MVP of the Midwestern Junior B Hockey League, and he's also MVP of the Intercounty Baseball League.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And
Catcher.
Catcher, and Dennis ended up becoming a pro player. He got drafted by Pittsburgh in pro baseball, and that sort of delayed him going to Northern Michigan.
Right.
And he went to camp 2 years in a row and played here, sort of the Pittsburgh chain, and played. There was a few months ago I saw a documentary about Yogi Berra, and talking about Dale Berra, and Dale Berra talks about his first camp at for Pittsburgh to be a catcher, and they show these 3-4 catchers at camp, and Dennis Flanagan's one of the catchers.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was there at the same time as Dale Berra. The other thing about Dennis, of course, a great storied career here.
Yeah.
Not only as a coach, but then as a general manager, and how many guys, 5 Sutherland Cups,
Right.
5 Sutherland Cups, 8 Cherry Cups, that sort of stuff. During that period of time, he went on a run where he replaced Jack Nairn, and then Dave Creston was in there, and I think at one point, I think Steve Rice and I had done the math once that Stratford had been in this Cherry Cup final, Midwestern final, 21 years in a row, and had finished first 19 years in a row.
It was a crazy run.
And so we talk about this sort of 2 decades here, about these players in that era, and it really was, with absolutely complete respect to current teams,
Sure.
teams, et cetera. But the idea of being either first or second for 2 decades and being in the final for 19 of 21 years,
It's unheard of.
It really is, maybe the golden age of, Stratford Junior B hockey. And I think I appreciate for this committee, as we said, we're looking for 10 for a decade. And I think out of the first decade, we have a 17.
Yeah.
And the next day, we end up with 14 or something.
Right.
Out of those first two, those first 2 decades. Dennis had 1,000 wins as a coach, 1,000.
Crazy.
1,000 wins as
Crazy.
a coach, 5 Sutherland Cups, 8 league championships, and yeah. But he was chosen here on his merits as a player. After he left here, he went to Northern Michigan, won a national title at Northern Michigan with a Stratford coach named Rick Comley. Before my time, I was in high school at the time. This guy played 75 to 77, and same with Dennis. I was actually in high school with them, and before I became a sports writer, I was at university, I guess, and was Frank Barth. And Frank Barth held the single-season points record of 128. So you think, boy, that's a record, that's going to stand up. It's going to be there for a long time. If you go back to Dennis's year, Dennis one year, he won this, he led the team in scoring with 71 points. And then a couple years later, Frank Barth leads the team with 128 points. So Frank Barth was a great player. Another guy went to New Hampshire. And that record stood not very long. Stood until 1982-83 when Old Chuck got 129.
Right.
And you'd think, boy, that's a record that's going to last. And 5 years later, which isn't long for scoring titles, that scoring title went by the by. And Frank Park, highly skilled centerman, very, another Stratford guy.
Yeah.
Stratford's first real star
I think so.
for
Yeah.
the Cullitons.
Yeah, for the Cullitons for sure.
Captained the Cherry Cup and Sutherland Cup champions in 1977, and then the following year, he went to UNH, and then John Wilson became the captain the following year, and then they repeated, beating Streetsville again in the finals.
Yeah.
So the Stratford Cullitons had quite a few players that played hockey in the winter here and played baseball with the Hillers.
Right.
Dennis Flanagan, Joe Hishin, guys like that.
Yeah.
Like some people won't know this, but the Hillers were a big deal.
Huge.
When I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's what you'd do. You'd go to the Hillers game, and that place would be packed down the lines, 5 or 6 deep.
Even had some imports played, like Brandon Carper
Yep.
played here.
Yeah.
Old Chuck could have played here. He spent a bit of time here in the summer, but he was a fantastic baseball player.
Yep.
But he wasn't eligible to play because he was 16.
Oh,
So
okay.
he couldn't have played for the Hillers if he wanted to because the age limit was 18. And and then in that summer he went off to the university or to the U.S. Olympic team.
Olympic, yeah.
But there was a number of players who played here and ended up hanging around and played for the Hillers.
So that completes the list, and we'll talk a bit about that. But our guest from last week, Greg DeVries, now that we have 3 people on the committee here, was DeVries in fact number 51? He was just wondering.
He says he's going to be number 51.
Okay.
And I'll let him be number 51.
So I've told about 16 people they were number 51.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Somebody says this guy on the list. I think he was 51.
I said to him after our podcast, I said, Devo, I said, if you're number 51, I said, I know for sure I'm about 800 and something. So, but full disclosure, but there's guys like that played in the NHL, Brian Smolinski, Greg DeVries,
Jeff Halpern,
like, and so it wasn't based on, well, this guy, went on to have a bona fide NHL career. We get that. Yeah. And Greg DeVries could have been on this list in a heartbeat, right? And so that's why, like, Jeff and I just appreciate the 5 guys that all the hard work and back and forth. And we
Analytics.
can only imagine what you guys went through. Well, what about this guy? Like Phil Berger wasn't even on the list you said originally, right?
Right.
So it's not an exact science, and that's why, and we don't want to be redundant, but folks, we want people to celebrate this list, not rip it
Critique
apart
it.
and critique and be a troll on the internet. We get it, right? Like we love the conversation, healthy conversation, debate it, but just be respectful because these guys volunteered their time, and it is a celebration of 50 players that you guys came up with, and we're just grateful that
The
you
thing
guys did it.
that I really like is the Pat Kelly story. I mean, I had no idea about why he was on there, and I saw the numbers, and I'm like,
Yeah.
there's got to be a reason
I
why.
had heard bits
So,
and pieces.
For you to tell the story and the outcome and it's just great, and listening to you talk to John with your chapter of the list, it takes you right back, and I think that's what viewers really appreciate about our show with guests like yourself is the memories and the stories and the happenings that you saw firsthand. So great job to the committee on choosing this list. It was really well done, and I've really enjoyed this today.
I think too. I really appreciate that, and I think the thing of it is, to me, as you look at these names, and it is a little bit, having worked as a sports writer, that it isn't just a name, it isn't just the stats, but for almost every one of these players that I knew, there was a story.
Right.
There was a story about their career, a story about a game they played, story about something significant that happened. And to me, that's the interesting part about all those guys.
Right.
Is the story that goes with it. Razor, to your point about through my era, some of the people that were on a list that sort of got paired off. A lot of them were NHL guys.
Right.
And you said they were NHL guys and they had really good careers here.
Mm-hmm.
But do they replace a guy like Colin Schmidt? Do they replace a guy like Phil Berger? Do they
Right.
replace a guy like Pat Kelly?
Right.
And it is entirely subjective, and it's entirely opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about some of the guys I left off, from NHL guys,
Yeah.
Gar Snow,
Right.
Mike Peluso, Clark Donatelli, Brian
Yeah.
Smolinski, Jeff Halpern, people
Yeah.
like that. Those are people you went, geez, they got to be on the list. But
Steve Sheffley.
as you start to get pairing them down, you go, geez, I just
And
Right.
the list goes on. Like off the top of my head, like I'm thinking like Bryn Gladding. Just
Yeah.
there's those
Another
types of people.
all-world
played
captain.
with Pat Murray and Sean Heafy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He
he
was
was
on a great line.
he was on our team.
Yeah.
85, 86.
Yeah, great player.
I thought
remember
about
him
Bryn a
well.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the best thing about this is it's going to start a conversation. And Jason's talked a lot about that this gets the conversation going into next year when we're still celebrating the 50 years, right?
Yeah.
You know.
For sure. Like I really think with the 5 members and the 5 different kind of eras that the 5 members represent too, we all could have come up with our own 50,
Yeah.
all been right and all been different.
Yeah.
Right? And, like I think about myself specifically, I remember this hockey club as a kid coming here with my dad to watch on a Friday night, to getting into coaching and coaching in this league on another team, and then coaching this team here, and then now working in management here. Right? There's all different levels of experiences that I have in my head of guys I watched, to guys I coached, to guys you manage. Right? And that's the great thing about this program and the amount of players that we've had come through here, that it's easy to pick 50,
Sure.
but it's really hard to pick 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was a great process. It was, thank you for including me. I really enjoyed my time doing it. It will create a great conversation here moving forward, and who knows where we'll go with it.
No, I just want to thank you for being on board with the idea, because you had the idea of the fan vote on the internet, and I
Yeah.
was just looking at the numbers
Yeah.
going, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah, well, I just thought, at the start of the year, I thought, we should do something. And
Yeah.
the 50th year, let's think about a top 50 in the 50th year.
Right.
How could we do that? And then
and-
as it developed, it turned into this, which has worked out great.
And the thing that I really like too, and we've mentioned it before, Clarky, with all the management and all the coaching in place with the Warriors current day, these are the people. You are all the people who understand their tradition, who are able to kind of corral the vision that's always been in this city with, the celebration, the tradition, the combining education with athletics. Even though the players have changed because the league has, you're not seeing, again, the same harvest as players consistently like you used to in decades before. But what you're seeing now is you're creating that network. You're understanding what you're up against. So, even getting into this year where you guys are just about to approach the playoffs, you've got a great team with some great anchors and great veterans. And, kudos to you. What was it, 14 rookies that you had this year?
Yeah,
you guys have been competitive. It's been
Yeah.
an entertaining product that you guys have put on the ice. You've made a couple moves that you need to. Those aren't easy decisions, nor are they right at your fingertips. So the fact that you guys are continuing this great tradition through this great organization is just a heavy, heavy thank you. I think on behalf of the fans, the city of Stratford, and the people that appreciate what you guys do.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you very, very much for that. And I think that's part of putting a staff in place that's locally rooted as well.
Right.
To understand.
The guys on our bench are all Stratford guys,
Yeah.
Or have coached here for a long time. The management team is from Stratford as well, so everyone knows what it's about, what we grew up, and we're
The history.
trying to create that again, because we remember coming in here to a jam-packed arena as a kid,
Right.
And I can tell you, playing in Cherry Cups or Sutherland Cup finals, either coaching or being a manager and looking out here to see a full arena, it's an
Oh,
incredible
yeah.
atmosphere, right?
Absolutely.
So if we can continue to create that, and that's what we're trying to do year after year, and we're ticking along okay right now, and we'll continue to try and do it.
Absolutely.
Well, that is such like a huge advantage, and John, you had referenced, when Waterloo and all these teams would come in, Jerry Harrigan referred to it as the asylum, like just because how big of a crowd they would get, how passionate the fans were. Like most junior B teams don't draw like Stratford does. And so for them to come in, like it can be very daunting. Now, you were able to experience the other side, how quiet you can make it when, you and Willie were with Listowel and ended up, winning. But most teams were on the other side of it and felt the wrath. And that is not a feeling that too many teams ever want to feel.
No, it's not a comfortable place to play for sure.
I like what you said too, Clarky, and I never really thought of it that way, but it's kind of like all the Canadians from other cities coming into Toronto on a Saturday night for a hockey night in Canada, and they have their families there and all that, and it's kind of like what you're getting to with coming into Stratford. If you're Elmira or Listowel or St. Mary's, whoever it is, you're coming to play because there's a lot of different elements, especially with the atmosphere in here and the dedicated fans. I never truly thought about it that way till you kind of mention it, that you got to be up to play here on a Friday night because it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, it's a real thing for sure. And we talk about it a lot. When I was coaching, we talked about it in the room. And if the hockey team is starting on time, we can chase teams out of here early.
Right.
But if not, it builds on you because the fans here, they love us, but they'll let you know if things aren't going well.
Sure.
Either, right?
Yeah.
It's a very honest fan base here.
Yeah, fair.
So.
Yeah.
I was in Nelson, BC at Hockey Day in Canada. I was they had a reception there, and a guy says, "Where are you from?" Stratford. He says, "I played junior B against Stratford." He says, "Most ridiculous event of my life." I says, "What?" He goes, "I'm from Nelson, BC." He said, "I'm going to the University of Guelph, and they had a junior B team, and they weren't very good. And a guy on my floor said, 'Do you want to play for us?' And I said, 'Well, I guess so.' And he said, 'I went to play junior B. My first junior B game was in Stratford.' He said, 'I'd never played in front of more than about 40 people. I go there, I get a penalty, and people yelling at me by name. Like they knew my name was in the program, and they're yelling. He said, there's these three guys right behind the penalty box, lean over the glass, yelling at me by name. he said, when I played at home, no one knew my name at home.
Right.
So it's a different place.
Doug Hughes holding the rubber chicken up.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe Hishin, he's come back in here, chimed in. Pat, I think he's referring to Pat Kelly. Pat Kelly's head was so big they took padding out of his helmet so that it would have fit.
Had to take padding out of the helmet.
Is that folklore or truth?
That is true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for that tidbit, Hish.
Yeah. That's
That's
funny.
And
So-
his forearms are like Popeye.
Right.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Bill Bridges, right?
Right. Yeah.
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 So I went through a lot of stats leading up to this and been able to go through them. We had an addition to the 100-point club this past Friday night. Cole Lewis made it to the 100-point club.
Yeah,
Good for
congratulations.
him. It's not an easy feat anymore.
No,
Not
no.
like it used to be.
It's the goalies are so much better. Like they really are. And
Well, the phantom points you used to be able to get back then, right? Like
yeah.
Colin Schmitz, I think he said he got a goal and he was in the dressing room, and you know. But
So, really quickly, again with the thanks for having us here, Clarkie. But I just have to ask, with Razor to my left here, when you guys are up here watching the game or whatever, you hear Billy at all? Billy Allman?
Well, there's footsteps.
There's footsteps.
There's some footsteps. Maybe not when I'm watching the game, but when
Okay.
I'm sneaking out of here when the building's dark.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Uh,
quiet.
It's quiet. It's
Yeah.
you know what I have taken a couple times here leaving the rink after the Cherry Cup or after the Sutherland Cup, when you're in here and everything's settled down and it's quiet. And Gary, you would know from
Oh, yeah.
working here, right?
Yeah.
It's a real special place when you're the only person standing in this
Yeah.
building in the dark.
Yeah.
And
The steam
That's
pipes.
pretty
It is,
cool.
Like
yeah.
the clanging and you know, it's just
it is a magical
Well,
place.
it really is.
And like I was saying when I came in here, and full disclosure, really truly understanding where we are broadcasting from tonight in the Directors Lounge, it is a privileged
Yes.
area to visit.
like look at the backdrop.
So we really appreciate your exception to the rule to accommodate us tonight. But man, it's like walking into 1970 something in here
Oh, yeah.
in such a great, positive, beautiful way.
Yeah.
It's just an archive of the decades of the history of this hockey team and organization. So we really wanted to just extend a special thank you for the privilege of being up in here for this podcast.
You're very, very welcome, and all the credit goes to President Jamie Nigro and the board that's allowing us to be up here and do
Yeah.
this.
And may I just say to Jamie, thank you so much for your accepting, I guess, the exception to be up here. So
Yeah,
it's
not a lot
been-
of
it's been
people
fantastic.
have been up here. Like all the black and white photos of, you know, history and memories and yeah.
Yeah.
Like Jeff said, thanks so much, Clarkie,
Hey, you're very
yeah,
welcome.
for
Jamie,
letting us.
Jamie
be
was
up
on
here.
board right away.
Yeah.
He liked the idea. He's, you know, it's just a great organization. General is here. He's part of the board.
This room didn't exist until the board of directors approached the city. The city, it was just a storage area up here, and we were looking for a permanent place to hold our meetings. And they gave us permission as long as we provided all the labor and all the materials.
wow.
We hauled everything
Yeah.
up here and built this, and it's stood the test of time
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
far.
I was going to say
Yeah.
it hasn't changed since you built it, General, has it?
No, it's
Do you want it though?
it's a wonderful,
is.
wonderful
It's-
spot.
It's like going
and,
into the press box, right? That's
Yeah.
still back from when
Yeah.
they built that. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
We expanded that too.
yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah, that's right.
Well,
But guys,
Boy, we got through that pretty good. I just want to say I'm very proud of this list. I'm proud of everybody on the committee,
absolutely
all the help they gave. The 5 guys that picked the players. I'll let you know Stephen Rice had a perfect decade.
Yeah.
You know, there was nothing wrong with his list.
So he was 85 to 95.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every player he picked was on the team and on the list, and
Right.
he even said, didn't he, John? He said he was savage with his picks. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's just
wouldn't be
it's-
easy, that's for sure.
It's not. And
It's great.
yeah.
Well,
like when you first gave Jeff and I the list, like I'm looking at it, and I had lunch last Friday with Nick Hishin, who I coached in minor hockey as a peewee, and he said to me that they listened. Him and his dad Dan went down to a Red Wings game, and he said we listened to 2 of the Armchair Chirpers podcasts, and he said you had Paul Barton and Dan Forget on, and he goes, I was too young to remember him, but Dad is like, wow, yeah, like I remember those stories that they were talking about, and so then when we had DeVries and Schmidt and Anderson on, that was the era where Nick was able to
Right.
remember, and he says like just you guys having all of these guys on a list of 50 is just going to be so good for people to go back down memory lane. And so, you know, we thank you for allowing the Armchair Chirpers to reveal this list, Clarkie and John, you know, for being part of it. And
Oh, thanks a lot.
There's sorry, just really quick. There's is it Gary Brothagen?
yeah,
Little kudos to you, John. He says social media is great, but nothing beats the local sports reporters that used to cover all of our games in great detail with the Beacon Herald and greatly affected our attendance. So meaning, I would think that you're reading more about it. You want to see what all the fuss is about. So you're going to go to the ballpark. You're going to go down to the Almond and so on and so forth. So I just thought that was worth mentioning because that's a pretty nice compliment. And all of us at this table certainly remember the sports section of the Beacon Herald and the great writing that was done by you and of course Ricer and stuff like that. So
Mike Savage.
Yep.
and,
Sav and
yeah,
Corey
great
Smith
times.
presently.
Corey
and
Smith now.
Corey Smith
yeah.
now.
I remember when my mom was flipping out because it went up to 65 cents or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So
Thank you.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you to you guys for coming on the show. Thank you to the viewers that allow us to do this, because if nobody watched it, we wouldn't do this. And we get so many compliments, and our phones, like I said, were blowing up. Guys couldn't wait. Even guys like Ken Chisholm, Razor, can you just let me know? Like, it's killing me to see who's on the list. So
I almost didn't get out of the hockey change room yesterday. They had me cornered. Name one person on it. I'm like, nope.
I've had a lot of people ask me, who is this person? I don't know. And then Clarkie said, can you send out the list so we can get it on the social medias right after we reveal it? And I said, yeah. And I put top secret on it on the byline. And he goes, don't worry, I'll pass it on.
yeah.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
Les,
So,
if you want to send us off.
All right. It's okay not to be okay. Just start the conversation.
Thanks, everyone. Have
Thanks.
a great week.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Well, mind,
Hey, you want counseling, right?
lovesick blind.